Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Casuals MMA. We're going to be talking about UFC 232, the brand new Year's, bringing in 2019 with a big card as UFC always does. You got brothers Ryan and Sean, and thank you for joining us, whether you're tuning in via iTunes podcast download or you're watching us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us in on this first one. Sean and I are very excited to start doing this podcast. We love talking about mixed martial arts. We love talking about the matchups, and we're just excited to be able to share our thoughts. This is really a show for fans, by fans. We really want to get our fans involved as well, get the conversation rolling, so that's it. Any comments from you, Sean? You want to talk about anything to kick us off? Say hi.
No, just excited to get started.
Yeah, good. First off, I want to talk about, you're probably tuning in, you're like, why the Casuals MMA? That's kind of weird, right? You're like, usually it's associated with fighting, hurting, punching, something like that, and you're like, Casuals? What the heck is Casuals for?
A little run-on of a joke amongst MMA fans where if you say something that is considered stupid to other people, you're considered just a casual fan. So we'll probably will say a lot of stupid things on here to a lot of people.
If you're in any forum, it's such a running joke, to me, at least to us, I think it is, and probably most MMA fans. If you're on any forums, it doesn't matter where you're at. If someone disagrees with you, they just call you a casual.
Yeah, it's pretty much your go-to argument against somebody if you don't have something to come back with.
Oh, I know. It's so funny to hear. I remember the one, I think I told you about this, after Nate Diaz and Michael Johnson fought, and I was just kind of ripping them because the boxing was horrendous. I mean,
it was a pretty sloppy fight.
It was very, very sloppy. I mean, Diaz usually fights like that, but I was disappointed in Johnson, and I think Diaz had a typical long layoff, and I was saying that, and oh my God, I got absolutely ripped. And the other thing they do too, on there is, how many fights have you had? And how long have you been training and stuff? MMA is just a weird sport because people don't do that in football, baseball, basketball. They don't say, how long did you play for? If you're like, that linebacking package, blitz package was terrible, people aren't like, oh yeah, well how long did you play in the NFL? You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it's because MMA is such a smaller circle if people train, if they a lot of people do high school football, baseball, all that stuff. Not a lot of people train in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, boxing, and all that. So if they hear somebody talking about something, they probably think they're stupid and have never done it in their life.
Yeah. It's just weird. It is a weird circle. I think it's because it's more accessible. If you're a 30-year-old firefighter, you can still jump into MMA and train and stuff. So, but it's. So for a little bit of background, I've trained mixed martial arts for 5-6 years. I've had a long layoff. I had 3 amateur fights. So trust me, I'm not going to say from my perspective as a pro fighter or anything stupid like that. I just had 3 amateur fights. But just watching the amateur circuit, it's such a mess, man. It's so wide open. What people think is prepared and unprepared is just.
Well, it's not like boxing, where boxing's had this long history of top amateur circuits. They know exactly what they have to do. They can line them up with the perfect guys they need to and put them in a position of success. Whereas MMA, you could be training with somebody who hasn't even really trained before.
No, and that's the crazy thing. I mean, I remember we're going to fights, and these are great venues. We're in, so just for a little bit of hindsight too, if you don't know us personally, we are located in South Florida, and I remember my last fight. These are nice venues.
I remember your last one in Tampa, right?
Yeah, the last one was a DoubleTree hotel. I mean, a huge event hall. Probably 2,000 people at least. And I mean, even the casino. I fought at a casino the first 2 times. But so it's a really nice event, and it costs a lot of money to get in there. I remember this so vividly. One of the guys that fought right after me at the last one at the DoubleTree in Tampa, he was training out of his garage in Georgia.
Yep, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and he had only trained for 4 months. If you wanted to, you could not train and step up into an amateur bout if you want to. At least in Florida, I know you could. I mean, it's been a while since, but I don't think the rules have gotten any stricter.
Yeah, and that goes back to my point about boxing, where you couldn't do that in boxing.
Right.
And maybe that goes back to the governing body, the sanctions. You know, they just don't. They're not educated on the sport as much as they are as boxing, and they probably don't care as much for the amateur circuit.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of the Wild West right now. I know they're trying to implement some, guidelines and stuff for amateur. Maybe at another podcast we can get a little bit more into that. I can certainly speak from the Florida perspective, but yeah, why don't we just to circle it all back? Again, that's why it's Casuals MMA. Just a little knock on it. We enjoy it. We love it. So we want to talk about it.
We've all been called it before. If you haven't, you will be eventually.
And if you comment on anything, that's for sure. Absolutely. But I think the interesting aspect, and Sean and I were talking about this, because there's some great podcasts out there that cover MMA by pro fighters, and you can get some good insights. But I think the perspective that we bring is we're unbiased, right? Because we don't train with these guys. A lot of the time when you hear like Daniel Cormier talk about Cain Velasquez, or Michael Bisping talking, just talking about people that they work out with, they're always going to sway to their side, and they're going to be a little bit biased, which is understandable, 100%,
yeah,
right?
It's definitely one of those things that's good and bad, because you get some insight to how some of these guys train, what's going through their mind, but at the same time you wonder, how does this person really feel about this fight?
Mm-hmm.
They don't, you don't always seem to get their full opinion.
Right,
because
exactly.
they're friends, they don't want to say something to ruin their friendship or distract their friend before the big fight. So
yeah, and I think the advantage Sean and I bring in here, one, we've been watching for a long time, so again, I've been training. I guess I didn't really dive into that, but so I trained about 5-6 years. Not necessarily a long time, but I mostly did Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and a little bit of freestyle wrestling focus, mostly so I can continue to stand up and make sure I'm fighting on the feet. But the other thing too, we've been watching the sport for a long time. We've been athletes our whole lives, whether it's weightlifting, baseball, football, basketball. I think you played soccer when you were younger.
yeah, for like a year.
Yeah, and
I gave it up after that.
yeah. But we're very analytical, especially Sean. We love watching the sport, breaking it down, and that's what we're hoping to bring when we start talking about these fights and really breaking them down. This process is going to build off of itself a little bit every time. I think we've been watching, since maybe 07, 06.
Probably about that time. I remember the first fight I ever saw was Forrest Griffin versus Keith Jardine, and watching Forrest's head bounce off the canvas like a basketball. I remember thinking, what the heck is this sport? What is this?
I think like the first one I remember very vividly watching, and I was just like, the same thing. I was like, oh my God, was GSP fighting John the Grinder Fitch? I hate that freaking nickname, by the way, but that I remember that one. He's getting bloodied up, and I'm like sitting there watching, like, oh my God, I let these guys do this? Like people are allowed to do this, and then I think the first full event we sat and watched was Griffin versus Ortiz. Versus Rampage.
Yeah. That's definitely the first title fight I remember watching.
Yeah, and what a fight.
Yeah,
right?
It was a great night.
Yeah, that was a great night. So I think that was what started our love for it. And then after I got out of high school, that's when I started training, after I didn't have baseball or football anymore. So Sean just started doing a little bit of boxing too, learning the ins and outs.
Yeah, it's always good to learn how to punch someone in the face. You never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah, we're working with a great guy, Will Ballister down here. He's shout out Will if you happen to ever listen to this. Great boxing coach. So, but yeah. Anyway, so just before we jump into the fights, we wanted to talk about a little bit too. Speaking of building off, this is just our first episode. We're putting everything together, all the equipment, recording, figuring this whole thing out, scheduling. So definitely expect more from us going forward. We really want to get the fight fans involved. We want to be able to have people come on and talk with us through some of these fights. We're going to do a lot of polls, do surveys, and see who's going to win, who can decide the best on the fights, and see who can come out on top, see if he can beat us on our picks. So, beat the casuals.
Yeah, and we'll definitely expand, and I think we've even talked about maybe doing drafting lineups eventually, and putting that out there, and things along that nature. And I'm sure as the show grows, we'll get more fan interaction, more
Yeah, absolutely. So to that point,
Twitter and
yeah,
Facebook.
and follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, Facebook. They're each for a different purpose, so that way we can get you involved. So yeah, that's it. So now let's start jumping into the fights because we have a ton of fights here, a ton of great fights here, ones that we're excited about. There's a lot of good prospects on this card, so the UFC always does it big at the end of the year.
Yeah, if they didn't put together so many great fights, it'd still be in Las Vegas.
Oh, we will be getting into John Jones' situation about California for sure. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think everybody has been talking about the.
Well, we'll make them wait till the end of the show.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't know what we're referencing, then if you know you're just a regular fan,
you're a casual fan.
You're a casual for starters, but they had to. We're referencing the fact that they had to move the event within a week because of John Jones testing positive for the Turnbull, which he got suspended, an 18-month suspension for last year. So this is actually his first fight back from that. So we'll definitely get back into that. But as we look at the fights, we're going to break them down. We're going to look at the fights from an analytical standpoint, talking about how the guys are, they match up. We're going to look at a little bit of stats. We're going to look at the odds as well from Vegas. So the update for this one is 12:34 p.m. Eastern. So they changed drastically. The weigh-ins are happening right now.
Yeah, to give an update, John Jones has made weight, Amanda Nunez has made weight, Corey Anderson has made weight, and I believe Andre Ewell is the other one.
Oh,
that I
good,
saw
good.
that made weight.
Yeah, yeah, you're watching that on your phone, right?
I was.
You were?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, yeah, no problem. We can always check in, that's pretty quick, but yeah, so I think the way that we're going to look at, or the way, I shouldn't say I think, the way we are going to look at it going into this is, again, we'll just break it down, we'll give you the odds, we'll talk about it, and then as we get onto the prelims and the main card, we'll talk a little bit more, with a little bit more insight, just because on the early prelims, there seems to be a lot of prospects on here, so even though we watch a ton of fights, there's some guys that haven't fought in too many of the bigger promotions with stuff online to watch yet. So with that, why don't we break it down into the first one? Any other comments before we jump into the fights?
Actually, it does look like Alexander Gustafsson also made weight, so main event is officially on, as well as Chris Cyborg has also made weight. So both the title fights are over. So that's the good news.
Oh my God, those are gonna be, I can't wait to talk about those. But all right, so let's jump into the first one. So we're talking about early prelims here. Those air on. Sean, do you actually have what the early prelims air on? I think that's Fight Pass.
Fight Pass. This is, I believe, the last Fight Pass.
Oh, before it goes for ESPN.
Yep.
Next year. How exciting is that, by the way?
Big news. That's gonna be a big podcast. It's gonna be
Yeah.
exciting.
When it goes on to ESPN, like Fox was great.
Fox did a lot for the sport.
They
It really
yeah.
launched them into the mainstream. Now it'll be interesting to see what ESPN can do for them. Can they take them to that next level?
Yeah, because I think the way Fox set it up, it really just made it seem more, I guess, professional. That you can say.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about the UFC Fight Pass website and all that, and how terribly it's ran and all the bugs on it.
Oh, are they getting rid of Fight Pass when the ESPN?
I'm not 100% sure if they're getting rid of Fight Pass, but if they move over to ESPN, it'll be so much better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because you know how Disney does.
Yes.
Grandpa Disney, Father Disney, however ESPN wants to call it. And then they bought out Fox. Speak of which, probably one of the reasons that they moved over. But anyways, yeah. So Fox did a great job, man, and they had a stellar final main card this past month.
Fox. I don't know. I'm sure ESPN will do the same, but Fox always gave jobs to the fighters. That was nice to see.
Oh yeah.
A lot of really good commentating at the end of Fox.
Yeah, and you heard that from them. Daniel Cormier, Paul Felder, I believe.
Paul Felder, Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, Dominic Cruz.
Bisping is supposed to be now commentating. He's supposed to be joining the table. So
what a heck of a crew. I never liked Bisping when he was fighting, but he's a great commentator, man. He's entertaining when he's on there. But yeah, so a lot of big things to look out for 2019. But first, before we look at the new year, we have to get by 232 first, So let's break it down. We're gonna do this backwards. We're gonna do from forward, considering it's gonna be the very first fight, right, of 232 tomorrow. with Brian Kelleher fighting Montel Jackson. Jackson, I believe, is supposed to be a pretty big prospect.
Yeah, not a lot of info on Montel Jackson. We've seen Brian Keller fight many times. Good athletic fighter, that doesn't really stand out in any area, but tough, solid guy. He can go 3 hard rounds. We saw that with Lineker, even though Lineker didn't end up finishing him. He took a lot of big shots in that fight. Durable guy.
Yeah, certainly, I agree with that. He's fast. He's exactly what he's serving the purpose in this fight for Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson, to give you a little bit of insight, is 6-1, so he doesn't have a lot of fights under his belt. I think he's fought in the UFC one time and he lost that first one, and that was just back in August. So this is really, as always, they're always looking for contenders, right? Especially at 135 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that division seems
They're
wide.
not just looking for contenders. They're looking for contenders that finish fights, and he's finished 5 of the 6 by knockout. So
both of these guys are finishers. I think, I'm looking at Brian Kelleher right here. He has, of his wins, right? So he has 19 wins, 37% are by knockout, 42 by submission, but so only 20% are by decision. So I mean, both these guys finish fights essentially, right? Yeah. So they go for it. So it should be an interesting fight. I'm looking a little bit down on here. Average fight time for Kelleher is 9 minutes. And then average fight time for Montel Jackson is 15, so a lot of his knockouts must be, or a lot of his finishes must be towards.
It'll be interesting watching him fight live. Looking down here, he's 5'10" compared to Brian at 5'6". It'll be interesting to see the reach advantage, because I know we've talked about it. Some guys just have weird bodies.
Oh, I know. It's and 5'10" for 135. That's
huge.
Insane. So. Wow, I can't wait to see. But I'm sure that this is what this fight is. We've seen Brian Kelleher fight a little bit. Like Sean said, he's a good middle class guy, middle of the rankings guy that is good to test a young prospect with. You know what I mean? So if I'm looking at the odds here for this one, it looks like Kelleher's the favorite. He's the plus 135. Montel Jackson.
I would say.
He's the Montel Jackson is actually the favorite.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I was going to say, if Brian's a favorite, that's probably just solely based off of experience.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So, back to it. So Montel Jackson, he's the favorite. Negative 155. Brian Kelleher is a plus 135. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to be interesting. Final comments on that one. Brian Kelleher does have a lot of experience. I mean, he's fought John Lineker, Renan Barrajo. So, he's used to being in the cage.
It's hard to really pick a winner for this fight. I know we tried to watch Montel Jackson, couldn't really get any video on him, so it's hard to pick for or against a guy you've never seen fight. But if I had to pick, I'm probably going to go with Brian Kelleher, just go off the UFC experience, savvy vet, go with the safe pick.
All right, I'm actually gonna go with you on that one, because I'm gonna go with the safe pick. So let's just take those down a little bit, because we're gonna see. Sean and I are gonna come back. We're gonna come back on Sunday and talk about the fights, and we're gonna see who's picking better on this one. So stay tuned with us. So then let's move on to the next one, which I'm personally excited about. So this is Curtis Millender versus Sayer Zarada. Sorry, that one's such a tough name to say. But Sayer is, I personally like him. He's a great boxer. He's a great stand-up guy. He was a big deal when he first came in, because he was like the first Middle Eastern fighter.
I know I've seen him fight, but for the life of me, I can't remember actually watching him fight. But I know for a fact I've seen him fight.
His last one, I think that was 2 fights ago. He fought Dong Huan Kim at welterweight, and that one was just boring, because Kim just took him down and just sat on him, and he didn't really damage him. You know what I mean? Like, he just won by.
Just wrestlers dominate.
Yeah, that's essentially how he won it. Sayer sat out a lot though recently. So I think that's part of it as well. Is I think he's only fought I want to say 3 times in the last 3 years or something like that. So he's had some big layoffs. He's had 6 fights in the UFC dating back to 2012, which is interesting. I didn't even realize he had that many, because I think I've watched about 3 of those, which I'm familiar with. But he's an exciting guy to watch. He's a power puncher. It'll be interesting to see how his wrestling works in this one. Although I think Curtis Molinder is going to be stand up. I think this is a
Curtis
big
Molinder
fight.
is a primarily stand-up fighter, not a big finisher either, so it'll be interesting. He's a big guy. He's going to have to use his reach. From what I remember, he stands pretty tall.
Yeah.
Even with his height, he stands pretty tall. So
Yeah, he's a 6'3" welterweight. I mean, these guys just
and he's not
getting,
very skinny either.
No, these guys are just getting smaller and smaller, kind of almost like he's bigger than Anthony Johnson when he was fighting at welterweight. I think Anthony Johnson is 6'2" or something like that.
About that.
So looking at him, 6'3".
I watched his fight against Thiago Alves, and they look like two different weight classes.
That's insane. That's insane.
But it's where we are today, though.
Yeah, it's interesting that he's not. He's not a knockout guy. You would think with that reach and
he just maybe just too much of a cut, he loses the power. You've seen that with Cormier 205. He's never really been able to knock anybody out. But heavyweight, he really carries the power without having to cut weight.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be a high volume matchup. I mean, if I'm going back to stats, not even just from watching both these guys, a little bit and analyzing their fights, I think that if you look at some of the stats, like these guys land 3.5 significant shots per minute.
Yeah.
According to fight metrics. Significant strikes, they land almost 50% of the time. So I mean, that's pretty big deal stuff. The one big difference I see here is that Molinder has a tendency to absorb more, which makes sense if you watch his style, keeps his hands down a little bit and likes to fight aggressive.
He likes to debate people in a little bit.
Right.
He's well in the trade.
Yeah, and Sair's got that big right hand too. So
so it'll be interesting to see if he makes an adjustment for his opponent. But he fought Thiago like that. Thiago is as explosive as anybody in that weight class, other than Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, I will say though. I mean, actually, if you kind of think about Sair and Alves are relatively the same, not because of their style necessarily, because Alves, strong traditional Muay Thai, but heavy-handed strikers. The only thing is, like, Alves never looked the same after he came off. I think he had something wrong with his knee. Maybe it was an ACL tear or something. He had a long leg.
Yeah, it was a while ago, right? That was after the GSP fight.
Yeah, he's
just never the same.
No, he hasn't looked the same.
It could have been him not, keeping up with the times. We won't get too much into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because we're focused on Curtis and Sair here, but this one, if anything, I'm just gonna say this is probably gonna be a fireworks show. I think that this one's gonna be entertaining. So watch for these guys be boxing each other. I think that this one will be entertaining. I'm gonna go with my gut on this one with Sair. I think he's gonna land that big right. I think that he has some pretty good boxing defense. He's gonna be able to move around, get inside on him. I think 6'3" and his size, 170 is just too much to cut down to. I think
it could be. We'll find out. I'm gonna pick Curtis actually because he's been much more active.
Fair.
I think his body will be ready to take on what he's going to need to do in that fight. What both men are going to need to do. And I think that's a question for Sair is if he's been out injured, can his body handle the firefight?
No, for sure. I mean, Vegas agrees with you on this one, for sure. Curtis is the -145, Sair is +125. So the first two fights definitely close, by Vegas odds. And the reason why I gave you the date earlier is because, especially at weigh-ins, Vegas odds change drastically. Like if a guy comes in and looks drained, guess where that money's going? It's going to go to their opponent. So
it all just depends on whoever's putting in the money at the last second might sway the odds.
Fair, yeah. If there's a lot of big money coming in last time or last minute, for sure. So, but again, a good fight. If you want to tune in early, I know there's some big college football games on, but you know what Sean and I do? We watch both.
Yeah, because we're dedicated.
We are dedicated.
We're the most dedicated casual fans that there are.
That's such a great way to put it.
We'll be watching the college football playoff and Fight Pass.
Yeah, we're a little spoiled. We use a projector for the fights generally, and then we'll have the football games on a high definition big screen TV.
The main card will take the focus though. Once the main card starts.
There's just so many fights. Like I'm actually excited to start talking about this next one.
Next one will be another great fight.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. Uriah Hall versus Bevan Lewis. Bevan Lewis, also AKA Rashad Evans lookalike, AKA John Jones style.
The face of Rashad Evans with body language of John Jones.
He's
Which
trying.
there's a reason for that. He comes from Jackson Link, so you know he's going to be well coached. He's going to be ready. He's going to be prepared. But you're always in for a fight when you fight Uriah Hall.
Uriah Hall, he's so frustrating because I'm not gonna lie, like I fall into the potential that he has. Like I'm like, dude, the guy's like 13-9. He's been in the UFC most of his career. Like most of his career is there. But then you go back and look, and I mean, he's fought tons of great guys, and he'll lose to a middle ranking guy, and then have a big time knockout. So he has all the potential there. His striking looks great. It's just you never know with him.
No, you just don't know if maybe the heart's there to push through some of those tough moments he's been in. He has before, though. I mean, in his second fight with Gegard, when he knocked him out. I'm sorry, actually, that was the first fight with Gegard, I believe. When he knocked him out, Gegard was dominating the first round, and he threw a spinning back kick. Gegard lowered his head right into it. I don't know if he meant to hit him in the head or if he just happened to duck into it, but it just shows he can change the fight with one strike, one kick, one punch.
And that's the thing that's so frustrating about him is because you see the potential there. Like we were just watching his last fight with Paulo Costa, which he ended up losing, but man, his hands look so crisp.
He had that jab working really well.
He does. He really does.
But it's once he slows down, that's where he gets in trouble.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because he almost comes like a karate taekwondo style. I think one of those is his background, his initial background. But yeah, he once he slows down, his jab is just popping though, and he looks like he should be able to stay on the outside. And the reason I say that is because going to Bevan, right? Mm-hmm. We watched a few of his Contender Series fights, and he's willing to take shots to move in and grab it.
As tall as he is, he had a pretty good range, but he didn't seem to know how far away he could fight from that range.
Yeah.
He seemed to fight very close, but he was good on the inside when he was in about clinching range. He uses his elbows really well.
He does, to your point earlier, like he fights like Jones. Like he'll use his elbows as you come in.
Elliptical kicks.
He uses his elbows when they're in tight. So that's interesting. But the thing is, like you would have to think that Uriah Hall's the more imposing of the two. Like he's
definitely bigger.
He's bigger.
He looks stronger. That doesn't always translate just from looks.
No, for sure. So this one's going to be tough. I mean, with my gut, I'm going to have to go with Uriah Hall.
I would probably agree just from what we saw from Contender Series. But you never know because young guys like Brevin Lewis, they can jump up real fast. Yeah, there's always a learning window for them compared to Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall will always look the same way he is now. He'll never look any better than he will be tomorrow night.
No, you're right. I mean, to that point, I mean, I'm going back. Because, I mean, it just blows your mind because, again, to your point, he beats a guy like Gegard, right? He beats guys like Thiago Santos, which, talking about that last Fox card, looked awesome against Manuel, which maybe that was just a weight thing, right? Because they fought to decision, if I remember that fight correctly. He beat Chris Leben, but then, like, he has stuff. Do you remember John Howard?
I do, yeah.
Yeah,
Doomsday, right?
Yes, yeah. John Doomsday Howard. I loved him, man. He was great. He lost to a guy, mind you, he's 5'9", if I remember, and he has been in the UFC for a while, and he fights at anywhere from 155 to 170, and jumped up, like, on 2 days' notice to 185 to fill in and fight Uriah Hall last second and beat him, like, soundly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he looked outsized. I was like, they really don't have this fight.
Uriah Hall looks like a big middleweight when he's in there.
He looks like a huge middleweight. To that point. So it's just like, he's up and down. So you just never know, to your point, with Bevan Lewis, what he's going to look like coming off the Contender Series.
I think that range is going to kill Bevan in this fight. We talked about watching Uriah fight Paulo. The way he throws kicks is like the way Edson throws kicks. You don't see them coming.
No, very snappy.
They fly out of nowhere.
Right. Because the interesting, like, he's really good at watching you come. Like when I was watching the Paulo fight, right? When you're watching Paulo take his angles in, or left and right, he snaps those like that because you have to be moving. You don't want to. You can't do those spinning back kicks on when you're sitting on someone's center line, which means that you're lined up straight, right? So you have to do that when a guy's moving, but to your point, he doesn't load him up.
Nope. They just whenever he throws it like a jab almost.
He does. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. I mean, he throws them so fast.
Yeah.
It's,
No load up.
no, just pop, pop, pop. So it's interesting to see, but he does keep his hands low, which I
He
can
does.
see as a big opportunity for Bevan, because watching his 2 Contender Series fights, you know, he uses his elbows really well,
Yep.
defensive and offensively. I shouldn't say defensive, more like counter-striking,
Mhm.
offensively. He uses them very well. He uses them very well in the clinch. So, you know, now that I'm talking about it more out loud, because I've been thinking about this fight a little bit, I'm really thinking it's going to depend on the clinch game. The way I see Bevan fight and whether or not he's able
And I'm
to
sure
get
that's part of
inside.
the game plan, like we said, coming out of Jackson Week, you know he's going to have the right game plan to put him in a position to beat Uriah.
Mhm. Yeah, so we're going to see it. I think that this is going to be an interesting fight as well. I think, unfortunately, this also has the potential to be an ugly fight, because at the same time, like with how tall he is, that's not something you typically see at middleweight, 6'3". So if he has trouble getting inside of him, if Bevan's able to keep Uriah at a distance with those oblique kicks, then that can also potentially turn this into a boring fight, because I don't think Bevan has the hands to necessarily take Uriah Hall in a boxing
No.
match. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it could very much.
His elbows are his best weapon.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And it's almost like he knows it.
Yeah, I mean, he had big time grappling, but this is a huge step up in competition compared to those guys that he was fighting on the Contender Series. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and they were a little bit sloppy in the takedowns. Like he had huge gaps in his game where, you know, a more experienced jiu-jitsu fighter or fighter in general will be able to you know, take those opportunities and get back up or move around. So yeah, so to your point, so let's go to the picks now. I'll go first. I'm gonna go with Uriah Hall on this one. I think he has so
same.
much UFC experience, and I think that he has the potential with his skill set and his size, strength wise, to negate Bevan's strengths. And then you said you were gonna go for him. So let's look at Vegas. What do you think Vegas has to say?
I think Vegas is going to have the prospect.
This is actually the closest fight so far. This is Uriah Hall's a -115, Bevan Lewis is a -105.
So close to a pick 'em.
Yeah, essentially. This is not worth betting on
No.
unless something drastically changes today at weigh-ins. So, but all right, cool. So we both have Uriah Hall on that one. Bevan, you're getting X. Even though I love his nickname, the Extraordinary Gentleman. What a great name.
You can't be jumping out of kids, that kind of thing.
Oh man. All right, so let's move on to the next one. The next fight that we have here is Wood versus Ewell. I think both of these guys are big prospects. I think that's why this one is headlining the early prelims. So we saw Nathaniel Wood in his last fight. Who did we watch him fight against? First Eduardo.
Johnny Eduardo.
Johnny Eduardo. There we go. I had mixed feelings about watching him fight.
Yeah.
Because he's a big prospect out of the UK.
He is, and they talked about that when he was fighting, but he didn't seem to be able to take shots very well.
No.
He got hurt pretty bad in that fight. I think from what I remember, Eduardo maybe went for a takedown, or something happened in the scramble.
Yeah, I think
Also
Eduardo
in
went
that
for
fight.
he went for a takedown when he had when he had him hurt, and when he had Wood hurt, he went for a takedown, and then to Wood's credit,
Which he was in complete control of the striking.
yeah, 100%. And then to Wood's credit, that's when he turned the fight around and got a great choke on him there, got a Bravo choke to finish
And he knows
the
how
fight.
to finish his fights.
Oh yeah, for sure.
9 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 14 wins.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't see the judges a lot, so
No, I think this is gonna be interesting. This is a good one because Andre Ewell's kind of in the same boat as him. They don't have a lot of I think they both might have one UFC fight or fight in the UFC, and they're both prospects. So you got Andre, Mr. Highlight Ewell on the other side. But I think what's going to be interesting here is the height difference. Like, because we saw when we watched that Eduardo fight, right, there wasn't that much of a height differential, but he was getting lit up in the stand-up. Andre's, 5 inches taller than him.
right.
to that point, like these tall guys coming in at 130. This is at 135. He's 5'11", so he's almost 6 foot, weighing in at 135 pounds, whereas Nathaniel's 5'6".
Right. Yeah. And the interesting thing to me looking at this is 2 of Andre's losses have come by submission, and we know Nathaniel Wood has submissions in his bag.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's not necessarily a classic striker versus grappler, but you'd have to imagine Nathaniel Wood's going to have to want to get him to the ground and find a way to end this fight.
Yeah,
Because I don't see him doing it on the feet, from what I saw.
no, I don't think so either. I mean, unless he comes in and catches him in a very, I guess, different way. It would be interesting to see if he can finish it on the ground. Really get him down and figure that out from there. Because you know what, when you see these prospects, that's where you see the biggest difference in level of
It is
in talent level. I
It's
guess
funny
would
how
be
you
the
can
best
see
way.
you can get 2 top prospects together. You can just see 2 completely different levels of athleticism.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you go back to when John Jones was coming up, the other top light heavyweight prospect was Ryan Bader, and we saw what he did to him.
Yeah, I know, right?
He made him look like he was middle of the pack.
Yeah, well, Tito Ortiz also made him look like he was more.
Well, I'm just.
But no, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. Yeah,
It's just how different their careers have gone since that fight.
yeah, and the interesting thing too is both these guys should have a little bit of confidence coming in. They both won their first UFC fight. I think Ewell had a close fight back in September, sometime back in the fall. I think he won by split decision. So it's going to be interesting. This is a big prospect fight. Always watch these. That's why we really like breaking these down. Is like you never know who's going to be the next Anderson Silva, the next John Jones. So it's always good to get in here and watch these prospects.
Conor McGregor started on the prelims.
Yep,
They all start there.
absolutely. So
You don't know who's going to be the next superstar.
yeah, so that's it. Who's your pick on this one? I mean, I know this is a tough one.
I'm taking Andre Ewell, taking the height, the reach. Every fight starts standing. From what I saw, there's not much striking defense from Wood,
Mhm.
so I'm taking Ewell.
I'm gonna go with Wood on this one.
Think so?
Just because if he's able to get inside and grapple, I know it's going to be tough because Andre's a taller guy. Again, when you look at the difference in the talent level for grappling, especially when you're looking at prospects, it varies so much.
Mhm.
So, just for that reason, I'm gonna go with the prospect on this one. I'm gonna go with Daniel the Prospect Wood. Let's see who Vegas agrees with. Wow. Again, this is the same thing as the Hall and Lewis fight. Nathaniel Wood, negative
Well, there's not much
115.
to see from these guys
Ewell,
so
yeah,
far. So
negative 105. So yeah, all right.
the more we jump up the card, the bigger the odds will be.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, because I think we had trouble looking for Ewell's fights online as
Yeah.
well. So I mean, imagine somebody that's just a sports better that's just throwing money down, on
Yeah,
games.
right.
That's gotta be tough. So, all right, now we're gonna start getting into the interesting ones because
You and I talked about this fight last night.
Oh,
we were very
goodness.
excited to talk about this one.
oh my goodness, because we don't like Ryan Hall.
Nope.
This
After one fight, we didn't like it. One fight.
It took us watching one fight against Gray Maynard to be like Ryan Hall. I mean, granted, obviously, it's always different when you're watching. He's primarily a jiu-jitsu fighter, which if you want to go back and torture yourself and watch the Gray Maynard fight, then you can clearly see that he's a jiu-jitsu fighter. But he's trying
He's
to make his
taking
rounds.
the jiu-jitsu fighter to a whole new level. Because
Yeah.
never before have we seen somebody who's just so blatantly avoided getting punched in the face. Not saying that you should want to get punched in the face, but anytime Maynard tried to engage, he just fell to the ground.
It was ridiculous. I mean,
It's terrible.
I think you made a great point. Like, at what point do you go? Does the referee stop it and say you're stalling this fight?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you go back and you watch every single time Maynard took a step forward, Ryan Hall literally rolled onto his back, right? And he's looking up, trying to get him to come in and fight him on the
I mean,
ground.
I'll get the first few times, try to draw him in, see if you can get him to bite. But it's clear that Gray Maynard won nothing. He's not going to bite into that. He's fought
he
too
kept-
long. He knows not to play that BS.
No, he was smart. He was like, no, stand up. We're gonna box. This isn't gonna be your game. But It's just frustrating, and the funny thing to myself and I think to you when we were talking about that is here Ryan Hall is getting like, why isn't he coming in? Like, you know, I have so much respect for him. Why? Because he doesn't want. It's not jiu-jitsu.
Oh, he said he was running. That was the exact word he said.
I couldn't believe he
whenever
said that.
He said whenever I try to leg lock him, he ran.
I was so dumbfounded when he said that. I'm like, he ran? Because every single time he threw a punch, he rolled on his back. And now the problem with that is you can't do any stomps, right? You can do kicks, but you are subject to those up kicks and stuff, right? And the way he does, he is really good at jiu-jitsu, Ryan Hall is. So, you know, he can get one of those leg locks. He can wrap you up real quick. So you're not going to engage with him down there. You know, you can't hit him in the face when they're down there or anything like that. So it's just a tough position. He's laying on his back like, come into my jiu-jitsu. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that, man. This isn't a jiu-jitsu fight. This is an MMA fight. And to your point, too, I thought that was interesting. I mean, is this something that the refs had to go back? Because this was a little while ago now, too. You know, is this something that the refs are going to go back? You know, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, you know, the governing bodies that make the rules for MMA, because there's different ones for different states, but I think Nevada's the big one overall, and generally everybody else follows along with their guidelines. But do you go back and say at some point you have to deduct a point for stalling the fight? Because I mean, he literally stalled the fight because the ref gives both guys the opportunity, right? So every time Ryan Hall rolls onto his back, you know, the ref's going to give him a second and see if Maynard wants to engage.
There's definitely a lot of lost time in that fight from him sitting on the ground.
A ton.
There's a lot.
A ton. And that was frustrating.
You know, we talked about it, you know, because oftentimes in MMA people don't like the grapplers because the fight is considered boring or they're stalling. This was the one time that I really felt like I hate jiu-jitsu. Because I know we talked about the Tyron Woodley-Damian Maia fight, how it wasn't exciting, but at least Damian Maia was trying to force something.
Right,
At least he was pushing the fight. He was trying to take him down even though he got stuffed 25 times.
But to your point though, he was making takedown attempts. He wasn't rolling onto his back asking the guy to come in and fight me. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was actively and aggressively trying to get those takedowns.
He was engaging the fight.
Yeah, perfect way to put it. He was engaging the fight, whereas Ryan Hall
was
inviting it.
He was negating anything to fight.
Yeah.
He just wanted to use his little kicks, his little Wonder Boy kicks that he learned from his dad. He just wanted to use those to stay away. He didn't throw. I think we tried to look up the amount of punches thrown. There wasn't very many.
Oh my god. I'm gonna see if I can find that on Fight Metrics real quick from that fight, because that was.
It was also
just,
a great manner. He couldn't throw any punches because that's all he was doing. He was just kicking them from distance. He couldn't really close. Anytime he tried to come forward, he just fell to the ground. So it's how are you supposed to fight somebody like this?
So Fight Metrics unfortunately does not have that fight up. Let me see if I can find it on UFC.com. But to your point, yeah, I mean that's just embarrassing. I mean, I'd be pissed if I was, you know.
I think what really got us was the post-fight interview.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, he just sounded like a dick. Let's just say it for what it was.
Say he was running.
Yeah, to say I have so much respect for him, and he was running and all this stuff. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
Not to mention, it helps that he's fighting our boy.
BJ Penn. I love BJ, man. I think everyone loves BJ.
Who doesn't love a prime BJ Penn, even though we're not going to see a prime BJ Penn, but
No.
this is a good matchup for him.
Oh, this is a perfect matchup for him, and now we're getting away from the hate and getting into the love. We talk about BJ, but this is a problem, though, man. What BJ is going to show up?
Who knows? Who knows? Is he going to show up as Jackson Link BJ or Jason Carrillo BJ? Is he going to be a boxing base?
I think he should be.
He absolutely should be.
He should 100% be, because, frankly, his jiu-jitsu is good enough that
he can roll with it.
He can roll. He can get out. He's so flexible. I mean, I can recall fights of his where he's, someone would go in for a single leg and he's got one leg over his head. He's still standing up against a cage and balancing and walking around.
He's the last guy I ever really remember using the rubber guard. You don't ever really see many people using that.
Yeah, he likes it a lot.
Yeah.
They were talking about that. I forgot who that was against, but because BJ Penn's the guy that made his career, mostly in the UFC. He took a little bit of time out and went around other organizations for a little bit, but came back and got that 155-pound belt, et cetera, et cetera. But BJ's boxing is the best, and was the best in the UFC. I'd say up there with, like a Jose Aldo, who I consider one of the better boxers.
Yeah, he was always widely considered in his prime as the best first round fighter.
Oh God, yeah.
In the sport.
And that's the other interesting thing too, is because when he went down to 145, he looked like his cardio made a rebound. Like for the first time ever, his cardio just.
Well, it forced him to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Where at 170 he was pudgy. He didn't have to cut weight. I'm sure he could eat whatever you wanted. He probably actually had to put on weight to make 170.
They're just those crazy Hawaiians, man.
They'll fight anybody. He's fought
Leo
Machida at 205. So
he has fought. You heard that right. Like if you didn't know that, he fought Lyoto Machida,
the former UFC light heavyweight champion.
Yes, like 3 divisions above him. Like, mind you, this guy was the 155 champ in the UFC, also the 170 champ. Like, he was clearly undersized at that weight class, which more credit to him. But yeah, he also fought a 205 Lyoto Machida. So this guy is just crazy. He'll fight anybody. Honestly,
it's Hawaiians, man. You've seen it now with Max Holloway.
Oh,
they're always game to fight.
Oh my God, so awesome, man.
As I think Israel Adesanya calls them Islanders.
But back to the boxing piece, he has such crisp boxing. He's extremely active. Like when his boxing's on, when he's not doing his kangaroo stance. Was that what they called?
I have no idea. It was
that embarrassing stance
against Frankie, right?
Yeah, yeah. He was trying to figure something out there. I mean, I get that, but
he was trying to be revolutionary at age 36.
He came out with his other style, but his boxing is so crisp. Like even when he lost to Nick Diaz, I've watched that fight 2 or 3 times. I mean, that's actually the perfect example of different boxing styles. Nick Diaz, the volume puncher, he's going to wear you down. Which I'm not saying one or the other's right.
Right. It just matters in whose style works better for them.
It's literally cardio versus precision.
Yeah. Like
that's what that fight came down to. But if you watch the first round, maybe the first few minutes of the second round, because I think it got stopped in the second round, you could see he's clearly landing better punches. Mm-hmm. Nick's throwing a heck of a lot more volume, which is typical of him and his brother, but he wasn't landing the same shots, I thought, watching the fights.
No, they don't typically land the same way most people do.
No.
It's to your point. They just throw volume. They're just trying to wear you down, gas you out, suffocate you. So.
Yeah, because I mean, those guys do triathlons, and marathons, and all that stuff. So they got cardio for.
To me, the thing in this fight is that Ryan Paul has nothing to offer, really. I don't think.
No.
BJ.
No.
That hurt him. Maybe the kicks. We saw that he had kicks, but he didn't seem like he was hurting Gray Maynard at all. The guy who's not really, has an iron chin.
Yeah.
And he just seemed to walk through all of his kicks.
Yeah.
Even the ones that landed flush.
Because they were snappy.
Yeah.
Like they're mostly defensive to be able to keep you at range, right? So he wants to keep you on that outside to make you more aggressive because he is tall, right? Well, at least for his weight class. I think this one is at 155, which the last one Ryan Hall and Maynard fought at 145, I believe. So Ryan Hall's 5'10". I guess this isn't that big because BJ Penn's 5'9", and he fights long. He's got a long reach.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. Well, Sean and I were talking about this a while ago. Is that great boxers seem to have stupid reaches, like these stupid long reaches. Conor McGregor's one of those. Anderson Silva's one of those. John Jones is one of those. Which I don't know if he necessarily uses his hands as much, but
I just say great fighters.
Great fighters, great boxers, great strikers have weird long reaches, and BJ Penn is one of those guys. So he might be 5'9", but he has a much longer reach. Yeah. That'd be indicative of
that's going to help. He's going to need it with the way that Ryan Hall fights.
Exactly. Yeah. That was going to be the point I get to. Is the way Hall's going to fight when it comes to boxing and stand up. He's going to want to keep him out of range, and he's going to want to box him. So. Dude, I'm going with, as long as BJ Penn comes in here healthy, he's coming in at 155, so he doesn't have to cut as much weight. He looks healthy at 155. I'm picking BJ all the way. All that also comes from the fact that I just don't want to see Ryan Hall win a fight.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way as you do.
I think most people do. Because the other thing here too is, Ryan Hall's a big time jiu-jitsu guy, but BJ Penn,
he's won Abu Dhabi.
He was like one of the few Americans that went down to Brazil and learned and got a black belt in 4 years.
Yeah,
that's unheard of.
Yes.
It's stupid. I mean, he has the flexibility. He has the long, lanky limbs, so he can submit guys.
You up.
Yeah, and he does this rubber guard. I just don't think. I mean, it'd be interesting. I'm sure that's why they matched these guys up, is because they're both good jiu-jitsu fighters, and I think BJ can fight him wherever he wants to fight. But hopefully, he makes it his game, outboxes him, and crushes him, and moves on. So,
Come on, BJ, we're hoping you end that five-fight losing streak. So,
oh God,
win and then retire for the 5th time.
yeah, we don't have to go into his. Maybe we'll do that another time. Talk about his 5 fights, but he has such a mixed career, though. Like it between him jumping weight classes and then he's fighting inconsistently. Like he'll take a year layoff and then go fight Frankie Edgar when Frankie Edgar was at the height of his championship runs at 155 and 145. And sometimes some guys just have your number. And I think Frankie did. Frankie just had, for whatever reason, he had.
He just could never seem to accept that Frankie was just the worst matchup for him.
And then he's coming in and fighting guys like Yair.
Yeah, it was a terrible fight.
That was terrible. Like you can't take. I think at that time he had like a year and a half, maybe even a 2-year layoff, and then he's going down to 145, a new weight class for him. And he's fighting a prospect like that who's tall and athletic and stuff. I just
kick your head off from anywhere in the cage.
Exactly. And he has such a weird balance, but BJ can show up any day. He's gonna fight.
I think this is the best matchup he's had in a long time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that this is more right along
this
the lines,
is the right fight for him.
especially at 40.
Yeah.
So both these guys are close in age at least. So definitely BJ. Let's see what Vegas says. Hopefully Vegas isn't gonna fail us on this one.
Speaking of, as inactive as BJ's been, Ryan Hall hasn't fought in 2 years either. So.
Oh my God. Ryan Hall is a monster favorite.
Oh wow, really?
He's the negative 525 to BJ's plus 415.
Oh wow.
That is a monster difference right
Yeah.
there. If I could tell you if there's going to be one fight that I put money on, just in case you're watching us on YouTube, if you keep seeing us look below the camera, we also have the TV on because we like watching the fights on the side. So we like checking out some fights going on. We were trying to get the weigh-ins, but I think they were just streaming, so we couldn't catch them on TV. But anyways, yeah, that's a monster difference right there. If you're gonna put that's actually a great fight to put money down.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to bet on.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, because again, BJ Penn's.
Maybe it's just from what Vegas has seen in his last few fights. You all right?
No, I'm choking on these odds. They're terrible. They're terrible.
Actually, they're favorable.
They're favorable.
It's good for betting.
That's a good point. I know Vegas.
At least in our eyes, it's good for betting.
Now that it's legal, I can say I've made some good money on these odds because MMA is still one of those sports that's just not followed very well. Excuse me. Those are some big odds. Yeah, so definitely, if you're going to throw money down, man, put it on this one. I would definitely say. Just looking at it so far, I mean,
it looks like through the weigh-ins, it looks like most of the fights are pretty much done. Still waiting on a few people. Ryan Hall hasn't weighed in. Megan Anderson hasn't weighed in. Chad Mendes has not weighed in.
That one's potential because I know Chad Mendes has had trouble making one.
Montel Jackson also has not weighed in yet. So
that means that they're still probably getting finalized weight cuts. Because you get like an hour or two.
I think there's a 2 or 3 hour window to weigh in. So
yeah, so they might just be losing those. Today's the hardest day, man.
Yeah, I think the one that the UFC is nervous about is probably Megan.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, she's a big girl. I mean, I can imagine it's a hard weight cut.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she'll make it.
Yeah, because she was a champ in Invicta for a while at that weight class, so I'm sure she knows what she's doing. The weight cut's the hardest part of the fight. I mean, any of those fighters will tell you. I was cutting, so I fought at 145, and I was cutting from 165, and a lot of that came in the last month. And then typically you would go in the day before like 10 pounds heavy, and then you'd start sweating it out and getting the rest of that weight off. Maybe not 10 pounds, maybe more like 6, 7 pounds. But man, when you get down to those last like 2 pounds, you're like, come on, man, like you already lost 20 this month. Like, what's another 2 pounds?
Right.
When your body will stop sweating, and it gets rough. You're sitting in a sauna with a jacket on.
You've seen the videos of Darren Till cutting weight and passing out and losing his vision, and it's just the real world of weight cutting.
Yeah, because the other big
First
thing
thing
too,
is-
which a lot of people aren't talking about this, and I don't know why. I was gonna make this point a little later. You know, these guys can't use IVs anymore. That's how a lot of them were getting rehydrated. Like that's why they didn't care about cutting all this weight because they were using IVs to rehydrate. And now Vegas cut that, or Nevada cut that out. So it's a lot tougher. So you're just going, you know, whatever you can. But yeah, so. But that's good. I'm glad to hear that all the fights. This is always like a cross your fingers, hope that nobody screws up or gets hurt, injured. Because not just making weight, but to your point too, a lot of people get hurt or pass out, have to go to the hospital. I think that happened to Nunez, didn't it before? Or maybe I'm wrong.
We might have. I know she backed out of a fight today.
With Valentina, wasn't that?
Yeah, I
she
think that was
did.
sinus issues though. I don't know if that was weight cutting.
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird.
Well, you know, Max Holloway, his last two fights he couldn't make too before the one with Brian Ortega because of weight cutting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
So we'll see.
It does look like all the fights that I know you and I have talked about that we're most excited for are pretty much on. And I don't think we have to worry. Oh, Captain Ghana hasn't weighed in, but she'll make weight. That's a featherweight fight.
Yeah. Yeah, she's going up.
Yeah, Andre Arlovski hasn't weighed in yet, but he's going to make weight.
Yeah, he's
just got to step on the scale.
Yeah.
He didn't have to cut weight.
Yeah, I doubt he does. He's always been like the middle of the pack, or I mean not middle of the pack, like middle of that monster weight class because heavyweight goes from 225 to 265. So he usually is somewhere between that 230, 240 range typically. But all right, cool. So let's get to this next one. We got Peter Young, who is a big prospect for the UFC, and Douglas Andrade. Man, this one should be interesting.
It should be really interesting. I know I saw highlights of Peter Yan's last fight, but I haven't watched the full fight, so I'm not 100% sure what to expect from him. But we did watch Douglas Silva yesterday, and looks like a tough striker. You know, definitely Muay Thai based.
Oh yeah, because he fights out of Tiger, and then
It's Peter Yan that fights out of Tiger.
Oh, does he really? Oh yeah, he does. I thought that was Douglas when I was putting that information together for that. But yeah, so actually that makes us even more. So you know these guys are striking, and Douglas Silva throws with power.
Yeah, he does with bad intentions.
Yeah, he does every single time. He's a tough as nails guy, and he has an interesting Muay Thai style. He has a more modernized Muay Thai style. Like, so if you go look at a traditional Muay Thai, right, they're going to sit on that back leg. They're going to be pretty straight up.
His style is more catered to MMA.
Yeah, he bounces, he cuts angles, he's in and out, he moves in and out, he throws a ton of feints, so he mixes his boxing style in, which is what we're seeing a lot of fighters move to, which is smart, right? Because you don't want to take shots, because a traditional Muay Thai is a brutal sport, where they just blast the crap out of each other.
Yeah, it's pretty much one for one, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you with my best shot, and then you can hit me, and then I'll hit you again.
It for the most part is shown. It is, and to that point, so this should be very interesting, knowing that Peter young guy, 25, fighting out of Tiger Muay Thai. So that's one of the big Thai gyms over in Thailand.
Yeah, probably the most famous Muay Thai gym in the world.
Oh yeah.
So you know that these two guys, it's basically going to be a Muay Thai fight. There's probably not going to be a whole lot of grappling going on.
Yeah. So I think that this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a ton of fun. Definitely watch out for this. It's going to be interesting to see whose Muay Thai is better. But because I've seen Andrade fight before, he's fought in the UFC a couple times, I'm going to pick him for this fight.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Peter Yan. You know, I feel like the UFC wouldn't want to put up one of their top prospects at bantamweight against somebody who is a real threat to them. I think that they would probably know better.
Yeah, well, this is a test, right? Because
Yes.
Andrade is 33, 34 maybe, whereas Peter Yan's 25.
25.
And this is a favorable matchup for him because they're both strikers.
Yeah.
So, and this kid's out of Russia, so Mother Russia. So hopefully he takes a shot of vodka and goes in there and shows up. You know, because I'm going to pick Silva because I've seen how hard he hits. I've seen the way he moves. I like it. I enjoy it. I'm kind of favorable to that style. And I still have yet to watch a full Peter Yan fight other than highlights. So I'm going to go with him, but I'm really hoping. I guess my reaction would be I hope Peter Yan wins because you want to see a young guy,
Yeah,
young good prospect.
You always want to see fresh blood.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So,
In the ever-evolving doors of MMA.
yeah, to say the least. Vegas agrees with you and agrees with my wishes. So Peter Yan's the favorite. He's the negative 275 to Douglas Andrade's plus 235. So pretty big difference there actually, which I'm surprised, but they must really like what they've seen from him. So. All right, great. So let's move on to the next one. I think that you just mentioned it is Kat Zingano and Megan Anderson.
Big fight in the women's featherweight division.
This one should be very interesting. I'm very excited to see this one. This one go down because we've only seen Megan fight once. That was against Holly Holm, which that's not an easy fight.
Not a great showing, but
She
it was a
did
tough
not-
fight.
She did not have a great showing in that one. But what I thought was great, and I mean, because here's the tough part is Holly Holm took her down, controlled her on the ground, multiple
Not known for
times.
being a wrestler.
Not known for being a wrestler. She is a striker.
I mean, she
a
trains with a great
kickboxer.
wrestling coach, Izzy Martinez, I believe his name. He trains John Jones and a bunch of those MMA fighters over at Jackson League. So it's not like she just learned wrestling out of nowhere. I'm sure they've been training that ever since she made the transition to MMA.
Yeah.
But Holly's not a big 145er. Kat's not that big. Kat's generally a bantamweight. But
Yeah.
wrestling is right up her alley. That's if she could choose to do anything, she's gonna wrestle.
Yeah, I mean, Kat's definitely wrestling in this. I mean, because she's the kind of fighter, she'll run in with her hands up and take shots just to be able to wrap you up and then start working those takedowns. Now, she does have some favorable judo style throws, which she's not gonna be able to pull off on Megan. Megan's too tall, she's too big. She's too big a fighter. She's 6 foot to Kat Zingano's 5'6".
Yeah.
Huge height difference there. But Kat's a thick.
She's ferocious.
Yeah, she's ferocious. She's thick. She can take shots. We
She's
saw that when
tough.
she fought
Yeah.
Amanda Nunes because man, she took some shots.
I watched one of her fights against Ketlin Viena, I believe is her name. 135 prospect, big Brazilian girl. She teed off on Kat a lot.
Mhm.
Kat just kept hitting, kept coming back. So we know what to expect from Kat. She'll take a shot, she'll keep coming.
Yeah, as long as that chin's still there, that's for sure. Because eventually that wears on you.
It
which
does.
helps. It does. But man, this one was hard to pick for me.
I think this is one of the easier fights for me to pick. I'm going Kat all the way on this.
Are you?
Yeah.
I almost want to go Megan Anderson just because I think that Cyborg I know Cyborg needs more contenders, right?
I would prefer to see Megan win because Megan's a much tougher fight for Cyborg as far as striking goes. But I think this is a worse matchup than what Holly was.
Oh yeah, no, 100% because this goes against Megan's style stand up, and if Holly, that was my earlier point, is if Holly's taking you down, this isn't good for you. Because Kat's a great ground fighter. She's tough as nails. She's gonna throw elbows if she gets on top of you. Yeah, I mean
Did it all day.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm gonna go Megan just for the sake of wanting her to win this fight, because I think that's a better, to your point, better stylistic matchup. But I think Kat Zingano is gonna win this fight. Like to me, this is her fight to win, even though she's had a little bit of a layoff. She's fought some champs, man.
Yeah.
She's beat Misha Tate. She beat Amanda Nunes.
She finished Amanda Nunes.
Finished Amanda Nunes, and she finished Misha with ease. So she's got a nice little track record for herself there.
And a lot of people thought she was going to be the one to dethrone Ronda.
Until she got thrown.
She just ran in and charged.
Yeah, she did. But that's her
I
style.
I remember watching Demetrius Johnson on Rogan's podcast talking about that she was just too emotional before that fight.
Yeah, she is weird though. Like if you watch her interviews, actually even if you watch her head movement, like she does this weird
she's a little awkward with her head movement.
I don't mean to sound mean, but it almost looks like she's having an epileptic seizure a little bit when she's like going in there. She does like this weird head movement.
That was also a long time ago, so that could have changed by now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hey, you know what? It might work because you're moving weird, and then somebody's like trying to get fixated on when they're gonna punch you, and then you just jump right in there and get that takedown in or wrap them up. I mean, it could work really well on that. Yeah, she's also beat Raquel Pennington. So she's certainly, I mean, other than her 3-fight losing streak, which those were her first 3 losses, I think she's very emotional.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that because she's a woman, so please get that crap out of here. But I'm just saying, like, from knowing her fights, right? Like, because there are a lot of emotional fighters, and I think that it gets in their head, like, right? So this goes across men or women, right? So we see that there's fighters, and when they take that first loss, they run, they roll with it. They'll take a few more because they're inside their own head. Looking at you, BJ Penn, speaking earlier, but yeah. So this is going to be interesting. She's coming off a decision recently back in July, so she should be fresh. She's training. Nice 6-month layoff. She's coming in against a great contender. So damn, I'm regretting taking her, but no, I want Megan. So I'm gonna roll with Megan on this one. And did I read the Vegas odds on this one?
No, I don't think so.
I have not read the Vegas odds.
I think this could be a favorable betting lineup.
Kat Zingano's the favorite.
Oh,
Negative
yes.
165 to Megan Anderson's plus 145.
Not great betting.
No, it's too close.
Yeah, not much to win there.
And I would have only put maybe $5 on that, assuming like Kat was not the favorite.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, Megan could always catch her coming in.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Which, I think that's where what'll be the deciding factor is whether or not Megan can keep her to the outside. She's got that long reach. She needs to learn how to use it. Holly Holm's a whole other level of striker.
Yeah.
Holly
moves a lot.
She moves a lot
of energy,
and she knows how to get in and out. She's a long time fighter. So I mean, that's the other thing. Megan Anderson can surprise us. She can easily come in here and keep the distance and pepper her away at her, and go from there. All right. So let's move on to another exciting fight with old UFC legend in Andrea Arlovski. How are the rest of those guys doing on weight?
Arlovski is waiting.
Yeah. Where's he at?
245.
245. That sounds about right for him.
He's the only one I think that they have on here that's weighed in.
Doesn't he train at Jacksonville too?
He's just bounced around, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I thought he was over there for a while because I was looking at his information on Sure Dog and it was saying that he trains at Archangel Michael Club. But I was almost certain. So he must.
I think he's training in South Florida, Jackson Wing. He's been all over the place.
Yeah,
a guy like him, he's just got to always try to find something new.
He's been around for, he's kind of like Uriah Hall. Like looking at his record, being at 27 and 17. I mean, granted, he was great when he was younger. He lost his chin early in his career.
Like most heavyweights.
Yeah, because he had some battles. He's this guy that can absolutely surprise you and come out with blitzing knockout or a devastating knockout.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why looking at this, my early take on this is that Walt Harris is probably going to walk away with a knockout in this fight.
Walt Harris is just a typical heavyweight to me. Like, he's a big heavy hitter. His striking's pretty good. He'll rush. He'll pretty much bum. And when I say typical heavyweight fighter, he'll bum rush in, throw those heavy shots, and take shots as well. But if he's able to throw over, maybe get an overhand right, maybe squeeze something in there for his defense.
I think this is a really good fight to watch. Is this kicking off the prelims or no? The last fight was right.
This is the last of the prelim.
Oh, this is the last of the prelims.
Yeah, I think this is the early prelim. Let me double check this right now.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so this is. Whoops. What am I hitting here? Hitting all kinds of stuff. My apologies. I'll get to it right now. But talking about Andrei Arlovski, though, I mean, he's
fought everybody in the fight.
At heavyweight, God.
Yeah.
He's been in tons of promotions. He's fought everywhere. He's just a guy like, he had a 5-fight losing streak not too long ago, where he was fighting Stipe, Alistair, Josh Barnett, Francis, Ngannou. So
It's a tough stretch.
he got knocked out, submitted, knockout. And the thing is, it's just because his chin's gone, man.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch him, he has great boxing. He has great boxing. He's a great athlete, but his chin's just gone. He doesn't have it anymore. And okay, so this is the last of the prelim fights.
This is a good way to cap it off, I'd say. 'Cause
Oh,
I think
yeah.
this is a classic heavyweight fight.
Oh yeah, I think someone's gonna get knocked out.
Yeah.
Because Walt Harris is a guy that doesn't take people down quite often. So this is gonna be a big. I think this is gonna be a big ugly fight.
Well, Walt Harris only knows how to win one way, and that's by knockout. So.
Yeah, he's 6'5", Andre's 6'3". They usually are around the same weight. I think Walt Harris usually comes in around that 250, 255.
I think 258 for this fight, so a little bit heavier than his last fight.
I mean, this is like I said, this is gonna be a typical heavyweight matchup. We're gonna see these guys brawl. Someone's gonna bleed. Someone's gonna get knocked out.
This is a good bro fight.
This is a good fight for casuals.
Yeah, it's a good bro fight.
Yeah, no, for sure. So who are you gonna pick on this one, man? I don't think that there's much. Is there anything else you want to say about this fight? I really don't think that there is.
I think you summed it up. Classic heavyweight brawl. That's all you need to say about this one. I think Walt Harris takes it. Taking the youth, the better chin.
He's not that much younger, actually. I think
he's 4 years. 4 years younger.
Yeah, 4 years, 35. But I think we've talked about this a lot. Like, having more fights,
yeah,
wears on you.
Andre in MMA is much older than Walt Harris.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, you can see young prospects come in. If they're starting at 18 and they're just fighting 4 or 5 times a year, by the time they're 30, they look 45.
Right.
You know, that like just their body language and the way that they fight because they've taken so much damage. So I think that's a good point to make. I'm gonna go with Andre with the upset here.
Is it a big upset?
I don't know if the Vegas odds, but I think that I'm pretty sure that this is going to be that would be an upset. Because Walt Harris has got to be a guy that they're just trying to push at heavyweight because heavyweight's another place that they need contenders.
I mean, maybe he's 4-4 in the UFC, so it's not like he has high expectations.
Yeah, but you know, heavyweights to that point though, like they don't have. You can go on quick. They have such a thin pool of talent at heavyweight. If you go on a 3-4 fight winning streak, you're probably going to get a title shot. They need people to fight at heavyweight, right? So yeah, for Vegas, Walt Harris is the favorite. He's negative 160 to Andre's plus 140. So it's a close fight.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing that we were
I think this
talking
usually
about.
happens in the prelims. You usually get close betting odds.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you're trying to feel out a lot here, but yeah, big ugly fight. I think that's gonna be a great way to get some blood, get some knockout to go into the main card. So anything else you want to add about that fight? Otherwise, we'll get rolling to the next one.
I think it's good right there.
All right, well then let's get to the exciting stuff. Actually, let me mark that. So, Walt Harrison, not the Andre on that one. So I can get because again, his boxing's great. He actually moves great for a heavyweight and everything. He's very athletic. It's just he has no chin, so it'll be interesting to see. Let's get to the main card now, baby. This is such an exciting main card. There's some great fights on here.
Yeah, kicking it off featherweight with some bangers. Some dudes who can throw some leather.
Man.
The return, well, I should say the return of Chad Moneyman, but I missed his last fight, so for me this is the return.
Yeah, he had a long layoff, speaking of getting busted for steroids.
Yep. I don't remember exactly what he tested for, but he got a 2-year suspension.
Oh yeah, he got a big time.
Which probably was the best thing for him coming off of 2 knockouts. If Frankie Edgar knocks you out in the first round, you need some time off.
He's also taken some beatings.
He's 2 wars with Jose, you know.
I don't even know if the first one was considered a war. He just got knocked out.
But his 2 rounds with Conor, that was a lot of strikes landed.
Yeah.
There was a lot of back and forth. Took a lot of damage in that fight. And then Frankie just clipped him on the nose. It wasn't even like a clean flush shot. Just kind of clipped him and.
Chad's one of those guys. He's been around for quite a while. It might just be wearing on him. Talking about being one of those young guys that you have a lot of fights. I mean, he's 18-4, great record. I mean, he's lost the champs.
2 to Jose, 1 to Conor, 1 to Frankie.
I mean,
That's not exactly.
You're talking about Jose, probably one of the best.
3 champions. Those are 3 guys that are champions.
Yeah, the best featherweight ever until Max dethrones him, which eventually he will. As long as he keeps winning like he did against Brian Ortega.
Right.
So Jose, one of the best featherweight ever. Conor McGregor potentially could have been the best featherweight ever because he beat both the current champ and Jose, who was a champ for 10 years, and Frankie Edgar, who's just
who can beat anybody in any given day? It seems like except Jose. Jose
he
is
was
the
the
one guy.
155 champ.
For a small guy, a guy who can make 135.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about it, he beat BJ 3 times. He had those 2 wars with Gray Maynard.
So Chad's no way to scoff at. He's a great fighter. He fights strong.
This tells you what they think about Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't wait to see. And the reason why we didn't check out the odds beforehand is I kind of like the shock factor.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
Plus, they change all the time, like you said earlier.
For sure.
They could have been different yesterday.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I'm sure they're going to be different. The weigh-ins, I'm assuming, are mostly over. I know that you were checking that up a little bit. I think most everybody did.
It looks like everybody's going to make it.
Okay, good. Yeah, the only people that haven't weighed in are those people that need that time extension, right? But so the odds will change after that. But anyways, so I can't wait to see what the odds are for this fight. This is going to be so interesting because then, on the other hand, we go to Volkanov, who's won his last, 1, 2, 3, 4.
He's 5-0 in the UFC.
5-0 in the UFC. I mean, he's got Darren Elkins in his last one by decision. He has a couple decisions in it. Yeah, absolutely. So that's, I think that this is going to be a very exciting fight. This is the potential, that has the potential to shoot Alexander up into that contender list, which they want at 145 because Max looks like he's not going to lose to anyone.
He just took out their biggest prospect that they had,
or
their biggest challenger.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to that fight real quick, man.
Let's watch it again.
Put it on the big screen. They look like they were in 2 completely different weight classes. I thought Brian Ortega was a big guy for 145, and then to see him in there against Max, my eyes were just like, oh my god.
That's the first time I've ever looked at Max and went, wow,
he's big.
Yeah,
he's big. He's a big dude. Which can be a problem because Alexander's only 5'6". Actually, they had the same body pretty much. Alexander.
Yeah,
and
they
Chad.
kind of got those stocky wrestler builds.
Yeah, they do. Except I think I don't know. They're actually very even, like the way they look. I think that these are 2 guys that are, because Chad Mendes can finish fights. He has a lot. Fantastic wrestler. Trains with the Alpha Male team. So I think that this one's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see, where the fight kind of goes. Does it turn into a wrestling match, or does it turn into a boxing match? See who can hit the other one hardest.
I think that this one can easily just turn into a boxing match because when you got 2 guys that are so evenly matched, let's take a look at his defense, his wrestling defense. Significant strikes are wow. In his 5 fights, landed per minute. This is Alexander Volkanovski. He's landing over 6 significant strikes per minute. So Chad Mendes is 2.75.
That could be a huge factor in the fight because that obviously means Volkanovski likes to push the pace and fight fast.
He landed 60.
Chad can gas.
Wow, that might be a game changer right there.
Yeah.
Because Chad, we can see that he can get stopped.
But both of them have been knocked out before. But
that's true too.
You got to wonder, does he push that kind of pace? Because this is the most dangerous fighter he's ever fought. He's never, looking at his 5 fights in the UFC, looking at these names, they're not guys that can end the fight the way Chad can.
No, Chad can definitely end the fight too. He has those heavy hands. That's why these guys are almost identical.
Yeah.
Looking at it now, I've looked at the stats before, funny enough, but I think when I saw the height similarities again, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, wow, these guys are so similar. Listen to this. This is for their takedown, or their grappling, right? Takedown average, Chad Mendes, 4.08, if you want to get technical. For Alexander, 3.87. So almost in that 4
They're
range.
identical.
Takedown.
Virtually identical.
Takedown accuracy, Chad, 54%. Alexander, 41%. Takedown defense, Chad, 100%. What a number. I mean, I guess he fights mostly strikers. Takedown defense for Alexander, 82%. Fantastic. He's had 5 fights in the UFC.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard for either guy to get to the fight or get to the ground. So,
wow.
this has a fight of the night written on it.
Oh, absolutely. Both these guys, because when you get 2 guys that wrestle so good, they have great wrestling defense, you're going to end up standing up. And it's going to be interesting to see who can move in and out. I think the pocket's going to be where this one's won. Who can move in and out of the pocket, because Chad's fast. He can move in and out. He throws those heavy shots and out. So to be able to see him move left and right, see if he can pop those and not take a big shot moving backwards from Alexander, because I'm willing to bet that's what Alexander's going to do. So he's going to push the pace and he's going to push him back, because we've seen Chad gas, to your point, right?
Yep.
So how do you take advantage of that? Is you make him gas. And just looking at his significant strikes per minute, that's ridiculous. That's insane. Which I guess it makes sense if you've seen him before. He's a fast dude. So, and not a lot of their fights good. I mean, Chad Mendes has more decisions, but to his defense, he's also fought a lot more elite competition in the UFC.
Yeah, he's had a lot of fights in the UFC.
Yeah, because Alexander has only gone to decision like 28% of the time in his fights, which is pretty damn impressive when you consider how many fights he's had.
Yeah, 18-1.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Man, this is a good fight. I'm going with Alexander on this one because I want to see that prospect come up, and Max needs somebody else to fight.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Chad. I think that volume can get you in trouble sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
It opens you up.
Mm-hmm.
And, like we said before, Chad only needs one to put it away.
Yeah.
And he has been knocked out before, so it means he can be knocked out.
Mm-hmm. Both of these guys. So let's go to Vegas and
To
see
me,
what
this
Vegas
is a coin toss.
Vegas slightly agrees with you. Negative 155 Chad Mendes to plus 135 Alexander. So Vegas is not favoring the prospect on this one.
That's the thing with MMA. You probably don't get a lot of huge betting lines just because there's so many factors into a fight. It's boxing.
Yeah, that's something I'd be interested to hear from our listeners as well as, some Sean and I were talking about in here, and we have opposing views on this, is there's a lot of stats online, thanks to Fight Metrics, that's available, and we can look at these guys side by side and be able to pick a paper winner, right? So that would add into the picks. We can do the paper winner by the stats, we can do the winner by our own choices, and then Vegas off and see who of those 3 is the most well-versed in their MMA knowledge and guessing. But so I'd be interested to hear if that's something, going more toward, because stats aren't big in MMA right now.
No, there's so much to keep up with, and they don't always translate to every fight.
Yeah.
So
and you made a great point. That's why I think that it's such an interesting thing to try out. Figuring out like this, how to make the most out of those stats would be interesting, right? Do you go offense versus defense?
Nobody's really figured it out yet.
1-to-1, yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough in that regard because I think to your point, like there's so many factors. It's not like a spreadsheet that you can go in for football and say on paper this team's going to beat this team. If you look across the board with defense, offense, right? It's a lot tougher because there's so many other factors with weight cutting and the way guys strike, favorable matchups,
right?
And you just and a fight can be.
You never know what kind of injuries guys are coming in with. You don't know.
Yeah, that is.
You don't know if they've been compromised, if they've been knocked out in their training camp.
Yeah.
You don't. There's just so much.
It'd be interesting though. So I don't know. That's something I certainly want to try. I'd be interested to hear. Put that up on our Facebook page. We'll have links for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff on the download section or on YouTube. You'll be able to find that in the details. So let us know your thoughts on that one. I'll put a poll up. Maybe we'll figure that out. We're going to do that for future ones and give it a try. We can play around a little bit with that too. Maybe try some different angles on a little algorithm. I'm not a statistician, but
right,
we can figure something out. That'd be interesting because I think stats are intriguing to look at because it's not an angle that we've typically looked at from MMA. It's more like a feel. It's a feel out process, right?
Yeah.
Like I've seen this guy fight. I think he does this and this well. How's it going to work out? So, all right, great. So, I think on that one you ended up going with Chad Money Mendes.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with the great, Mr. Alexander, on that fight. So that's gonna kick off, man. What a way to kick off the main card, though.
Yeah, that's a great fight. They do that a lot. They like to kick off the pay-per-view, get you hooked in early.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because this is, and again, this is a great fight to have. This is number 5 versus number 10 in featherweight. So this can easily shoot Alexander up into that contender
Oh,
spot.
yeah. This
I
puts
think
him in the top 5 if he wins.
Yeah, even if he wins though, like even if he goes out there and knocks him out, I think he still needs like one more fight before he fights.
Yeah, there's guys ahead of him too, so there's no reason to rush him. You know, there's
Max has cleared out featherweight though.
I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. Moicano.
Oh yeah, Moicano. Yeah, that's true too. Ooh. That'd be a good fight. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to stop pulling the John Jones on that one. I'm thinking about other fights. We got ones ahead of us, so.
Yeah, think about the lines on the table. Like right in front of you.
All right, so let's move on to this. This should be an interesting fight. Speaking of number 5,
It's hard to believe these guys haven't fought each other with how thin this division is.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Ayer was at middleweight for a while too. I'm pretty sure.
What? I feel like most of the fights I've seen him at 205.
I'm gonna check that out. I'll check that back on that. But this one should be an interesting. This is 2 grapplers, 2 guys that can do heavy grappling, fighting each other. So in some way, kind of like the first one where you talk about guys that can grapple if they need to.
This is a really interesting fight because they are both grapplers. They also both get knocked out pretty frequently.
And he's got stone hands.
Yeah.
He gets knocked out, but he can also knock you out. But you know what? Where the big difference is here, though, there's a huge height difference in this one. Like I think Ayer is like 5'10",
5'10" compared to 6'3".
Yeah, that is huge. And it would be interesting to see because you would assume that if they're both really good, because they're pretty good wrestlers, both of them, or they're good grapplers, you would assume that they could keep the fight standing, right?
Yeah.
If you come in.
So this one can get sloppy fast.
Oh yeah.
Because they're not the most technical strikers.
God no. I was gonna say Corey Anderson is not that technical.
But that makes for a good fight. When you have 2 guys who can't take each other down, they're a little bit sloppy with not great chins.
That's a good point. It's almost like a heavyweight fight, but
It is.
a light heavyweight. So, yeah, I'm just looking back on Corey Anderson's last few fights. He beat Glover Teixeira, Patrick Cummins, lost to OSP by knockout. Speaking of those, and Jimmy Manuwa by knockout. So that's tough. Lost to Shogun. Shogun's actually pulled off a few wins lately. Have you noticed that? Like quietly at 205.
He's still knocking some of these dudes out.
He's the same thing. Like if he had his cardio in place and he doesn't really get knocked out.
More years
too.
of youth on his chin, or his body, I should say, not necessarily his chin.
Yeah, he's still a great athlete though. He's just a
He
pure
still
fighter.
beat a lot of guys at 205.
He's a pure fighter, man. He really
He was
is.
in talks about getting a title shot if he would have won his last fight.
Really.
We'll move on from that though, because that's irrelevant.
But yeah, then you got Ayer who beat. Actually, here's a good middle ground. OSP. He beat him back in February this year. Beat Tyson Pedro. Lost to Ryan Bader. It's such a these guys are so interesting when you see that. I think that's the beauty of it.
I think these 2 guys sum up this weight class. Take out. It's so weird to look at this weight class and think that it has John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, and Daniel Cormier at the top of it. Because then after that, the drop off in talent. It's like I don't even know how to explain it.
It's just
it's
evenly matched or something.
Maybe it's just
when you look at those,
but you kind of go from these 3 guys that you would, without a doubt, consider they are the elite of not just even their weight class over the UFC, and then the rest of these guys are basically stepping stones for each other because there's no prospects.
Yeah.
It's just why I'm surprised that these 2 haven't fought before. Because
Yeah.
it seems like everybody in the top 10 of light heavyweights fought each other by now.
Especially too, like both these guys have been in the UFC for a while.
Yeah. They've both taken pretty similar trajectories in their, they win some, they lose some.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering correctly, I'm looking on here right now.
I mean,
I think Ayer did fight at middleweight for a little while, maybe just a handful of times, but then yeah, he was mostly up at 205. He's been up at 205. But he's been in the UFC for a long time, but you know what his problem is? He's had a huge layoff.
Yeah.
Well, not a huge leg. He's been inconsistent. So, like, he fought consistently up until 2016, and then only had one fight in 17 and one fight in 18 so far. So he'll have 2 fights this year. That's the most
But,
active.
you know,
he's
it
been
could also
since-
be because there was just nobody for him to fight.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when you find everybody in the top 10, you don't really get rematches if they're not for title fights. So
Feels like Corey Anderson's fought. He's fought pretty consistently over the last few years. Fought twice in 17, twice in 18 so far. So this will make his 3rd fight in 18. So,
he's just been hurt.
yeah.
I think he suffered a really bad knockout in one of his last fights with Tiffy.
Latifi.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, no, it's he actually won his last 2. He
Wait,
won.
was it the Ryan Bader fight that he ate a knee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a really bad knockout.
Yeah, that was back in 16.
Wow, is it really that long? Oh, yeah, I guess Ryan Bader's in
Yeah.
UFC.
Ryan Bader's over fighting heavyweight at
The champ over Bellator.
the champ.
For those of you that say that Bellator's catching the UFC, that tells you they're not.
Yeah,
Ryan Bader's the champ.
Yeah.
Nothing against Ryan Bader, but he'd just be above these guys in this weight class.
He'd be right. He'd be
He'd
right
be about
along with these
He'd
guys.
be about 3 or 4 in the rankings.
Yeah. I don't even know if he'd be that high.
I think he was about that when he left.
No, he was always pretty high.
He
there.
can beat anybody in the light heavyweight besides the 3 elite guys of the division.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what the other thing too is, like, a division will always look bad too when you have such dominant fighters at the top, right?
That's
Like,
true.
like when Anderson Silva was reigning over middleweight, they said, oh well, middleweight shallow. It's only shallow because they beat
But I think
everybody.
The difference is that Anderson always seemed to have like a guy coming.
Mm-hmm.
There just doesn't seem to be any guy at light heavyweight that's coming. You know what I mean?
It-
I mean, they talk about Anthony Smith, but he looks a little sloppy in some of his fights. He doesn't. To me, he does not look like the guy who possesses the tools to beat John, Gus, or DC.
It's been weird too because 205 historically has
When we
been,
first started watching, that was the weight class.
that was the
You
big
had
weight
Chuck
class.
Liddell, Tito, Forrest Griffin, Rampage, Rashad Evans, Machida.
I would almost argue that
Shogun.
205 was to MMA what heavyweight is to boxing.
Yeah.
You know, when it first started.
Exploded.
Yeah, I mean, that was where all the old, but that's the problem is, like, they haven't transitioned well to the new guard. Like, it was a lot of the old guard there. I mean, even Daniel Cormier, you could, even though he's he's a fantastic all-around fighter, he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, John's only got 1 fight left on him.
yeah. I mean, who else is John really? Who else would really fight at 205? They're going to be
I would
forcing
imagine this is
fights.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, for 205, I would think this is it.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. Who are you gonna make him fight?
I don't know.
I mean, the winner of Corey Anderson versus Yuri Latifi, because I'm telling you, I wouldn't pay for that.
I wouldn't pay for that either. No way. Because that just would that.
Sorry guys, but I'm not betting money on you for that one.
No. But you know what? I think, like, looking at it, they might be trying to bank on Corey Anderson here.
It could be.
They're trying to bank on him. He's won his last 2 fights. He beat Glover Teixeira, who was the last guy Gus fought before this one. So maybe they're trying to justify it in that way. I mean, come on, you know how the marketing is. They justify any fight just to get one
Well,
of
you
the
know,
superstars.
a light
in the
heavyweight or
ring.
heavyweight, it won't take much to get you a title shot.
No. Back to that point, like, I mean, when there's not a clear contender up there,
They're just looking for someone to give them a reason.
absolutely.
But you gotta give
100%.
them. You gotta have a good fight though to do it.
Yeah. So, to me, honestly, this is one of those fights where I'm not overly excited about it. I'm not a big Corey Anderson fan. I'm not, like, his striking isn't impressive, and both these guys are grapplers, so this could easily just turn into an ugly stand-up brawl. Ayer throws heavy. He's going to throw heavy. He's shorter. He's going to have to try and get into the pocket to fight him. So it's going to be interesting to see maybe that piece, whether or not Corey can keep the distance or not. Otherwise, it is what it is. So, who are you going to go with on this one?
I don't even know, honestly.
I'm going with Corey on this one.
I'll go with you. You just rival you.
Just to throw a wrench in there. Let's see.
We can't have too many. We actually do have a lot of different picks.
I think we do.
For
Because,
the most part.
yeah. So let's see. What does Vegas have him at?
This has got to be a pick 'em.
Ayer's the favorite. He's the minus 155 to Corey Anderson's plus 135. I mean, it's a pick.
Yeah,
It's
small.
pretty close. It's a small margin, but I'm surprised because he hasn't been active, man. But I mean, I guess that can also go into the he's relaxed. He can go in there if he comes in fresh. So that's the only way that I can see it. Fighting out with Sweden. That wasn't a Swedish accent, but don't get on me for that.
Swedish takeover in LA.
It is a Swedish takeover in like the
Two games.
furthest places you can be from Sweden.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Nevada's that much closer before they changed it up, but you know, I think someone online said that it's like a 4-hour drive or something like that. So, all right, we're moving on, baby, because this is another great fight. Or I shouldn't
Very
say great
interesting.
fight. Very interesting
Very
fight.
interesting.
That's a good way to put it because
Yeah, looking at here, Carlos Condit, one of our all-time favorites. Hard to believe he's lost more fights in the UFC than he's won.
he's also been fighting champs. And the other thing too is you got to remember, like, he's had some crappy decisions not go his way. He's had a bad run here lately, right? Ever since he lost to Robbie, which most people will say he beat Robbie Lawler.
I
I thought he did too.
I thought he beat GSP, or at least I thought he was going to beat GSP.
I thought that one was close. I definitely thought that one was close.
Oh no, maybe I'm thinking of Hendricks beat GSP. Maybe that's not thinking.
Hendricks beat GSP.
I think.
I hate to
Condit
say
just
that
had
because I'm not a Hendricks fan.
Kind of just had that one moment.
But to that point too, he lost to Johnny Hendricks. Not to me. If you watch that fight, that was a terrible decision, and the reason that Johnny Hendricks got the nod on that one was because he laid on top of him for 3, or maybe that was a 5-round fight. I don't remember now. No, that was a 3-round fight. He laid on top of him. He came up with some crappy excuse that I think he had like a cold beforehand or something like that. But Carlos was staying busy on the bottom. He was throwing up submission attempts. He was punching him, hitting him. Johnny Hendricks literally just laid on top. That was a crap decision.
You go back to his Woodley fight, it was a competitive fight until his ACL blew out.
Oh my God, yeah, so that's another one. That's
and you
another
also
one.
kind of question, there's a lot of talks of him retiring after he fought Robbie, that if he didn't get an instant title rematch, he was just going to call it quits. He didn't feel like there was much left for him, and he's had 3 fights since then, I believe? 2 fights since then.
That was the start of his 3-loss. I mean, he had four losses straight.
Yeah, he went
so
Woodley, Lawler, Maya, and
he
then
actually beat Thiago Alves after Woodley.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he lost to Lawler, Maya, Neil Magny, and Oliveira. Which Oliveira and Magny he probably shouldn't have lost to, but I think that there was an emotion piece to that. We talked about that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think to your point, like, he didn't want to fight. His heart was.
Yeah, do you wonder, is he just doing it to just keep earning a paycheck, or because he was always the guy that was game?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was always
a
game to fight.
fiery guy. I think him losing to Robbie when he should have won took it out of him, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And unfortunately, we've seen the repercussions of that. That's why I'm crossing my fingers that him fighting Michael Chiesa is going to be his retirement fight. He's fighting on the New Year's card. It's he's
Well, at least he goes balls out.
yeah, because this is a very, very, very favorable matchup for him, to me.
Yeah. Yes and no, because Carlos has been submitted 5 times, and that's right up Chiesa's alley. But
Yeah, he's been submitted, but I mean by better guys to me than Michael Chiesa. So bigger guys, stronger guys.
yeah,
Damian Maia submitted him. You know what I mean? Like
Maya cut through him pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, again, that goes back through his 4-fight losing streak where he just seemed to have it out of him. But I mean, if you look at that before, like his losses, to Tyron Woodley blew out his ACL, which that was a competitive fight. Johnny Hendricks, which to me he didn't lose, and GSP, he actually before GSP and Johnny Hendricks, I thought he gave GSP the best fight of his career.
Yeah.
Because he took him and really put it to him. Oh, this was another one too. He lost a split decision to Martin Kampmann. I like Martin Kampmann a lot. He's a big striker. I thought that was terrible. But the funny thing is, I wasn't overly upset because I do like Martin Kampmann. I thought Martin Kampmann actually was screwed over in a few decisions as well. So
Yeah, I don't remember that fight.
oh my God, terrible decision. But yeah, I mean, otherwise Carlos is a finisher too, man.
Yeah.
That's the other
But
thing
not
too.
Warren Taylor never was there better than anything for somebody.
Oh God.
Carlos Condit, at least when he was at his height.
He might be one of those guys where it depends on what Carlos Condit shows up. the same thing we said about BJ earlier. What Carlos Condit's going to show up, is he going to be motivated? Maybe this might be his last fight.
The UFC, I'm sure, is telling him, you don't win this one, buddy, we're done.
Yeah, because then he'd have lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
You know, only Uriah Hall has been able to keep a crappier record and stay in the UFC. Not that he's lost like 5 in a row, but just being so inconsistent. But I think he's lost like.
They still need these kind of guys.
But yeah, they do at those weights. But I don't think they need them at 150 or 170. They don't need
to fight the newcomers.
170 is one of those weight classes that has a ton of competition in it, so they don't need him. And it's interesting to see Michael Chiesa coming up, who's historically fought at 155, coming up to 170.
He's a big 155 though. I think he actually even weighed 171 at his weigh-in, so
Yeah,
interesting to see.
He's 6'1", tall guy.
Yeah.
Tall, lanky guy.
He's a weird guy.
Submissions.
He seemed to be welcoming a striking battle with Pettis. They're kind of egging him on a little bit. And he'll talk a little bit during the fight too. Very confident in himself, but not impressed with his striking.
No, he doesn't have good defense standing up. He's going to take shots. He's one trick pony.
Yeah.
He's going to try and get that submission, which if Carlos Condit's on, he's a great submission guy too.
Yep.
You know, he's a great grappler. So this one's going to be, the only reason that I don't for sure pick Carlos on this one is just because I'm afraid to see what Carlos shows up like. Is it going to
Yeah,
be
that's why this
motivated
one's
on
tough to
that?
pick.
Yeah. If I just went solely off my gut, I would say Carlos.
Yeah.
He should win the fight. To me, this is a going out
If
fight.
you gave
for
me
him.
2012 Carlos Condit, I said this fight would be over in 1 round.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because I mean, again, you got a guy coming up from 155, fighting at 170 for the first time.
If this was 2012 Carlos Condit, Michael Chiesa would be fighting him at least this early.
Yeah. But no, I know what you mean. Like just like a young, winning Carlos Condit. So.
The one
Yeah,
that
'cause that
knocked
was
out Dan Hardy with that left hook.
Oh my god, that was so awesome. Both of them threw that left hook. That just goes to talk about like technique, man. Because both those guys were in the pocket. They were sitting on each other's center lines, right? So you and I talked about that a lot since you started training in stand up with boxing, a little bit of kickboxing for you. Just talking about those center lines, getting outside of and cutting those angles so you can get outside of that. Those guys were lined up and they both threw the same shot, but
At the same time.
yeah, at the same time. But Hardy's was a little bit sloppier, was a little bit further out there. Like he didn't keep his hook nice and tight into the body, which you should, because that's how you're going to generate power, is when you twist those hips on the inside, right? And it stays attached. So it's like your whole you have that force from your whole body instead of just whipping your arm. Like that's why you see a lot of people street fighting, they just wail their arms. But if you watch a fighter, someone that's really well trained, they're going to use their whole body to throw those shots. But yeah, no, that was awesome. But 2012, just looking at 2012, Carlos Condit tier 20, that was when he was fighting Johnny Hendricks and George St. Pierre. So yeah, that was at the height of his his athletic ability and all that. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Carlos Condit here, man.
Yeah,
What's your pick?
Pick Carlos. Pick with my heart.
Gonna pick with your heart on this one. Well, Vegas doesn't pick with our hearts. They're picking Michael Chiesa
Yeah,
as the
that's
negative
good.
175 figure. First Carlos Condit, which I can too. Carlos is on a 4-fight losing streak.
He doesn't look good either.
He hasn't. He has not looked good. So, yeah, that's interesting to see that. But we will see come time of the fight tomorrow night. I can't wait. This is such a snack card, man. This is great. Think about all the great fights we've talked about, and we're not even into the co-main and main event.
We are now, though.
What a great segue, Sean.
We are now.
We are now to the co-main event. I can never be Bruce Buffer. Right?
Yeah.
What a great voice, man. On to Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes. This one, I'm hoping it's going to be interesting, but I'm thinking it's going to be demolishing for
I think
Cyborg.
it's going to be demolishing.
I think Cyborg's just going to tear through Amanda Nunes.
Do you think, I was wondering about this earlier, do you think Amanda's kind of like a good value Chris Cyborg in a way? I don't know, I mean, not
No, I know what you mean. I know what
like
you mean.
that she's awful or that
No,
she'll never
yeah.
be Chris Cyborg, but she's kind of like the same style a little bit.
She is. Yeah, she is. I think the thing is that they're great boxers.
Yeah.
They have. They're far and above the rest of their division. Well, Holly Holm's always right there. She actually fought Cyborg pretty well.
Probably gave Cyborg her toughest fight.
Yeah. Not saying much because she doesn't really have any
Well, hey,
tough fights, but
that was 5 hard rounds.
yeah. I just think Cyborg's too big, right? She's too fast. She has the cardio. Like they say, this girl runs
She runs 7 miles a
marathons.
day.
Yeah, they say she just runs and runs and runs and runs. And back when we were talking about the Diaz brothers
I
earlier,
think they said you
that's
can get her
the
from running like a few miles to resting heart rate in just a matter of a minute or something ridiculous.
That is insane.
Yeah,
That was something big that GSP worked on too. I remember
Yeah.
he was always big on talking about his resting heart rate, and the reason why is because if you don't want your heart obviously overworking itself. So if you're in this super active state, and the reason why that goes back to the fights is you think about getting your heart back down to that resting heart rate between rounds, so that way you can relax more and you have more energy.
so you recover that.
Right. Because if we look at, the reason they say like these super jacked guys that are in there that are really cut, carrying around a lot of muscle, why do they say they tire fast?
Because you got to get all that energy to the muscles.
They gotta get all that blood they're pumping into their muscles. So, so I think that's very interesting. Clearly, her cardio is a huge focus for her. I think that's fantastic.
And that's a weak point for Amanda for a lot of, or at least earlier in her career, was that she gassed out.
Yeah, and I wasn't. Her last fight was just not pretty. When she fought. Oh wait, she fought Raquel last, didn't she?
Yeah, she dominated Raquel.
Oh, man, you know what? I didn't see that fight, unfortunately. I was thinking of Valentina.
She looked good. She looked good. in that
Did
fight.
she?
Yeah, she picked her moments really well, busted her up.
Because I was thinking of Valentina.
Yeah,
Jesus,
Valentina.
there we go.
Yeah, that was a weird, compare that to the Tyron Woodley Wonder Boy fight where neither fighter could really get going.
Yeah, they just stood off. And they had a weird standoff, man. And if she does that against Cyborg's gonna tear her to
Yeah,
pieces.
Cyborg will come
She'll rip the line
And I
to pieces.
think we talked about this a little bit. The way that Cyborg hits women, like the look on their face when they get touched, is like they look like holy shit. Amanda, you don't get that as much.
Mhm.
You know?
They're because they move pretty well side to side. They're gonna be able to stand in. I'm gonna be willing to bet that Amanda's gonna circle a lot. But I think Cyborg's gonna be able to cut her off. She's bigger, she's stronger, she's faster. To me, actually Amanda's pretty fast. She has quick hands. She does, and she's a pretty good counter striker, and she can land with a lot of precision. But again, Cyborg's a bigger girl, fast, and she has cardio for days. She's gonna, if anything else, if not for anything else, she's gonna wear her down.
Yeah, and I'm picking Cyborg because Amanda has been knocked out twice by lesser strikers than
Oh yeah.
Cyborg. So
yeah.
I felt that she can be knocked out.
I'm just trying to think, like, the last time I haven't really seen Cyborg go to the ground lately. So, but it's not going to go there. Amanda's not going to take it down either.
Yeah.
Like, this is straight. She might actually, like,
She
just
could.
out of desperation, like, she might
Actually,
for
no.
a game changer.
Cyborg's first title defense against Anna Kunitskaya, I think was her
Mhm.
name. She got Cyborg's back early in that fight. Like, it was standing, but she couldn't get her all the way down. So,
Yeah, because she's too strong for that. So, trying to peel off the cage, which you never know. You might see Amanda Nunez because I don't have her mental state after I saw that Valentina makes me question her because she comes out on fire. Like when she fought Ronda, she came out on fire.
And Misha.
And Misha, she came out on fire, man. But when you watch her fight Valentina, maybe it's just because she respected her too much for her striking.
Could've. Valentina's tough. We saw what she did to Joanna.
Yeah, but then again, what does that say about what she could possibly think about Cyborg?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I mean, again, Cyborg's
It's a much more dangerous fight.
Oh, 100%. I don't. If Chris Cyborg's lost, I'm gonna look on here real quick.
It says on here submitted.
Was she submitted?
Yeah.
Oh, her very first fight.
So there you go.
Or, yeah, I think that was like her very first fight. Okay, I was wondering if she has a no contest because she got busted for roids years ago, all the way back in 2011. But so I was wondering if that was her loss. But no, she actually got submitted by with a knee block too, which you never know the outcome of that because I remember Silva got submitted when he was fighting back in Pride. He was absolutely tearing this guy up. It was a good fight, a Pride fighter. I forget his name. It's been a long time since I've watched that. The other guy. And the guy did a scissor leg lock, like just at the end of the round, just going out for it and ended up getting him to tap. It was crazy. But, so you never know. But yeah, again, that was her first fight. She's 20-1. 21-1 if you consider her no contest on that. So, yeah, I'm definitely 100% going Cyborg on this one.
Yeah, I'm going Cyborg too.
Alright. Let's see this. This, you know, at the same time though, if Amanda can find her range and she's able to land shots, this can turn into a great boxing.
I don't think
match.
she can move the way Holly did.
No, I don't think she doesn't move left and right like she does. That's why I'm like Holly. Holly has those quick in and out. She moves out of range. She does her little pivot steps. You know, she cuts under. She does a lot of more traditional boxing style, but she moves a lot.
Yeah, that's why she was such a great matchup for Cyborg because she could point fight her.
And keep up with her
Yeah.
cardio.
Yeah,
So she just doesn't move like that though.
she doesn't move like that, and I don't think she can go the 5 hard rounds like Holly and Cyborg did.
No, she throws power shots. Like she'll throw a nice uppercut. She'll throw a nice.
The
hooks,
thing is,
but-
I don't think Cyborg doesn't have to load up to her opponent, where I think Amanda does.
She's gonna. Amanda will hit you with a lot of shots. She'll hit you with a lot of uppercuts, a lot of hooks, things like that to wear you down. I mean, looking at it, they're both the same height, but they're clearly a different weight class. If you've seen these girls in the ring, I mean, this is clearly. Which actually, according to the UFC website, Amanda Nunez has a 1-inch reach advantage. I didn't think that they were going to be that close on that.
With
but
those 2 high level strikers, that 1 inch might not mean.
no, I mean, yeah, and you never know how that correlates. That might
Yeah.
be off because we've seen those numbers change. But they're both 5'8". Their reach is almost identical. Their leg reach is almost identical, which I don't even know how well they do that leg reach one. That one's new.
They're not going to use a lot of kicks, so
That's a
that's
newer
irrelevant.
stat. Yeah, no, these are pure boxers. So it's going to be interesting. Win by knockout 85% of the time for Cyborg. 85% of the time. That's something that you see from prospects coming up out of
Yeah, that just padded the record kind of.
yeah.
They have a lot of these no-name guys.
That's insane. Though, to Nunez's point, 69%, which is she's been fighting in the UFC for a long
She's
time.
fought the best 135ers, all of them.
So she's also won by 19% of her fights by submission. I think that's more from like tagging people, getting them
Yeah.
down, and then getting headlocks and stuff like that. So that might be a little deceptive. This is definitely going to get finished. Both these girls, they've only gone to decision 13 and 15% of the time respectively.
Yeah, this one's not going to the judges.
Average fight time is under 10 minutes for both of them. It's
There
right
you go.
around, yeah.
That kind of hurts me because I was saying 3rd round. I think it's finishing in 3rd.
Yeah, well, 9 minutes puts you right there in that 3rd round. Oh wait, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
No,
Puts
it's
you
hard.
at the end. No, you know what it was is I don't know why. For a second, I was almost thinking amateur round length, which is 3 minutes.
Oh, okay,
So I was
I
like,
didn't know
that's
that.
the end of the 3rd round, dummy. And I was like, ooh.
That's what we said. That is the 3rd round. I'll let him figure it out.
Oh, my God.
5-minute rounds, Ryan.
Going back to talking about earlier, like, oh yeah, we're gonna figure out the stats here and figure out how that
Casual.
works, and then I'm like, like 9 minutes. That's split it in the 3rd round. That should be the end of the fight. Actually, everybody should be done. That's the decision.
You're a casual, right? You're just gonna have to
Casual.
accept it, get used to it.
Casual fan. I'm gonna sit on the couch and just keyboard warrior my way through this. I'm gonna beat the crap out of Saki.
Do you woo a lot?
Woo! I'm just kidding. I'd be terrified to fight Cyborg. I can't keep up with her cardio right now. God, yeah, no way. Significant strikes landed. Man, they're actually very identical when you're looking at their strikes landed. But again, this is at 2 different weight classes.
Yeah.
Cyborg's going to be.
But you
much
can almost
stronger.
give it to Amanda because she's fought tougher competition, you could say.
tougher competition relative to a weight class.
Yeah,
Though. That's the other thing that you got to think. It's relative to a weight class. So takedown defense is 91% for Cyborg. Not that, again, I don't think that matters unless Amanda's going to try something different, but we'll see.
Well, she can try the Ryan Hall approach.
Ooh, I'll be cheering for the ref on that one. What's your boy?
Lots of booze.
Only in the U.S. do you hear those kind of boos, man. Like whenever they're overseas, if you watch the old Pride days, like when they used to fight those ridiculous 15-minute first rounds, that's insane, by the way. But that's also for another day. But man, that's wild. That's wild to me. All right, so yeah, we're lingering on here. Let us jump to the Vegas picks for this one. We both picked Cyborg in this one. In Vegas, this one's not terribly mismatched. Cyborg's the negative 255 to Nunez's plus 235.
That's about right.
Yeah.
That's where I would think it would be.
Yeah, that is too. That's a no surprise, right where you would think it would be for these two coming in. But I'm still gonna go with Chris Nunez. He's gonna demolish Nunez.
So everybody's weighed in but Negan.
Oh crap! That means, and I was saying good things earlier. That means she's still cutting, trying to make those last few pounds work. Cool. So let's jump to the main card. We got our main fight, the main event. 'Cause we got a lot to talk about here, and we've already been going for too long. So let's talk about this one, man. John Jones versus Alexander
The
Gustafsson. The rematch. Probably one of the first fight was one of the best 205 fights in the UFC that we've seen
Ever. Or
Yeah.
any weight class.
Yeah, it was a fantastic fight. But the other thing too is if you go back and watch, I mean it was still a great fight. It's still a fantastic fight, especially how much it swayed. You know, seeing John steal away a few rounds and Gus.
Seeing Gus avoid the takedown.
Oh my god!
How
like I think the other reason that made that such a great fight in hindsight is the emotion that came from it because you know who would have expected Alexander Gustafsson?
Nobody even really knew who Gus was.
No, and for him to only get taken down 1 out of 10 attempts, I think by the third round,
it was just here in
insane
Rogan's voice
stat.
as he's calling the fight. You couldn't believe how much Gus was hitting him and how John couldn't take him down.
And not to mention, Gus had the first takedown.
Yeah.
Did he have 2 takedowns?
He kind of did a trip, but he didn't secure.
Oh, that's right.
position.
That's what it was. Yeah, so we didn't really have a second takedown, but yeah, that first one. I mean, that was just
on
like
a single leg.
And,
Greco-Roman on a single leg.
and even when John Jones did take him down, I think that was
He got right back up.
Got right back up.
Maybe.
Trying to see, still working through. I actually took some notes on this one. Yeah, and actually not till 5th round, maybe. Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought that fight was completely controlled by Gus until the
Yeah.
big spinning back elbow.
Yeah, I think that was a good point. Yeah,
Started that round for John.
watching that one a few times, I think the same thing that you said. He started backing up, he started gassing. I still think Gus won that. It's hard for me on this one because I wanted Gus to win this fight, right? But I thought John Jones did enough to win by points, even though if you look at their faces and you look at the significant strikes landed to their faces, stat-wise, completely off
I
balance.
think Gus had a huge advantage in the punches, right? At one point.
At one point, it was like 88 to 11.
Yeah,
significant strikes to the head.
Yeah, something ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that was in like the 3rd or 4th round that they popped out that stat. You know, towards the end.
Caught
of
him
the
with a
fight.
lot of hooks, a lot of left hooks.
Because his boxing is
Yeah.
crisp. His boxing is super crisp. He's gonna hit you. His front hand is fantastic.
Yeah, it's effortless.
Yeah, it's effortless. The way he pops that jab, the way he pops the hook in there, he gets that uppercut underneath your arms through your defense. It's impressive to say the least. So it's going to be. I think that this one's going to be interesting because John couldn't get his hands going on that one. He used elbows, oblique kicks. He used a lot of high kicks, which. If you watch the fight, Rogan reacts to a lot of them, which, to be fair, on Rogan's part, they're watching from the cage, right? Like they're not watching. He didn't really land his as many as I think they made it appear, like the broadcasters.
That didn't seem to affect him.
No,
None of them really snapped.
he had an arm up, which typically that doesn't necessarily help the full blow of taking a head kick, but John Jones's head kicks were snappy as opposed to like heavy.
That's generally what he does.
Yeah. Unless your name's Daniel Cormier, but kicked in the face. But I think Alexander's clearly the better striker, and he has the tools to finish it with his hands.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we know one thing about John is he has a chin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've ever really seen him rocked,
Mm-hmm.
where you really go, wow, I feel like his legs are wobbly.
Mm-hmm. It
And
only takes
he's fought a lot. He's fought everybody. Fought everybody at 205.
It only takes one fight.
Yeah, it
To
does.
get wobbly, it only takes that one shot.
Last Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, and because Daniel's never been. Well, no, that's not true.
He's been rocked a couple times, but he's recovered fast.
Yeah.
He recovered really
That's
fast.
because DC also fought Anthony Johnson.
Yeah. Well, Gus hurt him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah. But back to this fight. It's going to be interesting because I'm going to be intrigued to see if John Jones can somehow figure a way to get him to the ground, because I think that's going to be the way that he's going to win this fight.
But you can keep him there because the last time he got him there, he couldn't keep him.
Yeah.
Gus scooted back to the cage and stood right back up.
Good point. Because Gus is going to win a stand-up, I think, in this one. He's going to come. He's not going to get gassed out. I'm willing, because he's had enough time. Like, there's been a lot of time between this fight. I was actually surprised because I remember this first fight so vividly. I couldn't believe that it's already been 5 years, right, since this fight. So I think Gus has a lot going in his favor, because what we alluded to earlier but did not talk about was all the stuff going on behind the scenes right now.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the momentum is in the favor of Gus a little bit with all these distractions for John. And he seemed to be looking toward DC a lot over the weeks leading up to this fight.
That was so annoying. I hated that so much. It's like, focus on the guy. You got a guy that gave you the best fight.
I don't know if I asked you this. Do you think like John's jealous of DC a little bit? Maybe of his reputation.
You might be right on that one.
Because
I don't know.
it's weird to me that he goes, even though he's beat him twice,
He still goes in.
yeah,
hard
he
at him.
still goes after him. He'll start it on Twitter. So
Might just, the other thing too, it could just be his thought process is easy money. He's beat him twice, and that's the big superstar that he can fight and make good
Yeah,
money.
I was
Especially
wondering-
with he sat out a lot recently. Jones with the suspensions and stuff.
I thought it was a little bit that he is jealous of DC's reputation because John cares what people think about him.
Oh yeah,
He
100%.
definitely does. That, and I think he just likes to get under DC's skin.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I don't know, like I'm mixed. I'm mixed with DC. Like his trash talk in the ring is stupid. It's just WWE
Not
esque.
good.
I don't like it. And he just sounded like when he's like, "Oh, I'm the double champ," and "Oh, this feels good." It doesn't come off genuine. It comes off corny. And I just like when he knocked out Neo Chick at heavyweight. It just doesn't. I don't know. That's a good point though. I don't know, Sean. That's good. You know how we'd be able to tell is if John Jones actually goes up to heavyweight after this fight, assuming that he beats Gus.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, they're going to have an instant rematch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If Gus wins this one, they're going to have an instant rematch. But back to this fight. So Jones, talking about Devin Lewis earlier, he's going to use his oblique kicks.
His elbows.
He uses his elbows fantastically. He's going to use it when you come in. He's going to use, which he really didn't get him going. I mean, it was that one spinning elbow that he had there. To your point earlier.
Yeah, a lot of times he was catching him with the shoulder.
So I don't know. I'm going to be this one. I think is going to be all about the takedowns. If Joe, because again, Alexander Gustafsson has had 5 years to fix his cardio, to make sure that he can go 5 rounds. They've honestly had almost as many fights as each other, even though Jones has had all these suspensions. Gus has kind of been sitting there waiting for the champ fights because he's fought Anthony Rumble Johnson, he's fought DC. So, excuse me. I think that for John to win this one, I think it's going to have to go to his wrestling. He's not going to outstrike Gus.
No, because he showed in the first fight he couldn't control the range like he was used to. That really threw him off.
Because Gus, he moves so great for a guy that's 6'5".
He moves like Holly a lot. Like he bounces around a lot. He's in and out, side to side. He's on his toes. He's running.
Can he do that for 5 rounds?
He couldn't against DC and Jones the first time. So,
which is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, because that's when he fights at his best, when he's able to move like that.
fun stat as well. He's the only guy to take down
John
DC.
and DC.
How crazy is that?
A
He's not
Swedish
wrestler.
guy, yeah. Swedish guy.
A
who's
6'5" Swedish guy. He's not even, to your point, that's insane that he's taking down both those guys. He's the only person to do it. He's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was, they mentioned that when Gus was on Top Talker, not Top Talk, whatever, UFC Tonight on Fox. And Cormier was, kind of jabbing at him because he won the fight. He goes, well, I beat you in the strike. And he goes, yeah, DC, I beat you in the wrestling. He goes, you're right, you did. And that's got to be hard for DC to admit that.
That's pretty funny. That's so funny to me, man. It's crazy that he has that wrestling. He just might be a natural wrestler, and his size too. Because usually they say like for wrestling, if you're shorter, you have the leverage, you can get underneath. But he's a taller guy by far, definitely on DC, and he's like maybe an inch taller than John, and he still wrestles him down and gets back up. So that's crazy. But yeah, Gus to win this fight, he's gonna need to move like he did in the first one. He's gonna need a big shot though.
Yeah.
I think he's going to need to land a big right, or he's going to need to land a nice left hook. I mean, he has nice uppercuts too. He'll throw those, which he throws those fantastic because his head movement is great.
I like to see him
that
using
tomorrow.
kicks. He doesn't ever really use any kicks.
No, he doesn't. But I can see why he wouldn't. I don't think he needs to though, because his hands are so clean.
Well, I think if you
boxing
can
is
mix
so
him in
crisp.
every now and then, it keeps him guessing.
I think the reason though is historically strikers won't do that against wrestlers.
Yeah, that's true.
So if he's looking to not give Bones Jones that advantage for wrestling, he's not
Give him
gonna
any
get
reason
that.
to grab a leg.
And does he really have a need to? He clearly outboxed him
Yeah, he
in
did.
the last fight. And John Jones isn't good. Like, granted, Alexander got knocked out by Rumble.
Who can't run
Who?
a knockout though?
That dude has dynamite in his hands. John Jones isn't gonna knock you out in one punch.
No.
I'm saying that now that's gonna happen. It's one of the sports things, but he doesn't knock you out in one punch. He wears you down. He breaks you down. He uses elbows. He submits people. He does that kind of stuff. So if this turns into a stand-up war, I'm gonna say Gus wins it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, he needs a big shot though. He did great last time using the ring. He moved around, he moved left and right, which kept John moving a lot. He can't gas, right? And and I really think that he has to rely on a big shot.
I don't think he has to rely on a big shot, but I think he's got to rely on not gassing.
Yeah,
That's the big
at the
one.
very least.
He's got to finish.
So let me put it this way: if he's gonna gas, he needs to rely on that big shot. If he
Yeah.
has the same cardio, he needs to rely on having at least
Some
one
guys,
big shot.
they can just never find it.
Because the other problem too is that if you let it go to the judges, one takedown might change the scope of the fight in their
Yeah.
perspective. Which I'm starting to see a sway in the decision making process, but it still seems like that one takedown is gonna get you a decision potentially. So
It'll be it's a huge deciding factor in the close round.
yeah.
For sure.
So the key to victory for him, I think, move. Make sure your cardio is tight. You can go for 5 rounds, and if you can, land that big shot. Keep it standing.
Yeah, keep it standing and move.
So let's on the flip side of that, John. What does he need to do?
Get this fight to the ground.
100%.
Yeah.
He needs to wrestle. And I think the interesting thing about his wrestling, which you were talking about earlier, a lot of people don't like the grappling aspect of MMA, but he's very interesting because he constantly changes positions. He finds interesting ways to take you down. Like talking about Ryan Bader earlier, like the way he leaped over him, turned and got his back. That was insane. That was so cool. I mean, it was just a regular move, but the point is he finds unique ways to get you to the ground, and that's something that he's going to have to find, which
And he makes you work on the ground.
yeah, and he's gonna make you work. He had trouble with that. He didn't get him down until like according to my notes, I think it was in the 4th or 5th
It was
round.
just one of the 4th or 5th. It
And
was
it
late
was-
in that fight.
Yeah, and it was 1, and Gus got right back up.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to find a way to keep him down there. He's gonna have to throw elbows. I think that's gonna be a key for John. Takedowns.
He was close to landing a lot of those elbows
Mm-hmm.
in the first fight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Close is not landing though.
Nope.
So he's definitely gonna have to find a way to get those. I think when he's in the clinch, he's really good too, because he does. Which that actually might be a key to victory as well too. Like a lower key to victory is we saw Gus had a lot of breaks on there, like when they were in the clinch and close range, and he didn't take any shots on the way out.
Yeah, something we talked about.
Yeah, and John is fantastic at that because he's not a
Mhm.
traditional striker. Like he's not necessarily best at throwing those 1, 2, 3s, right? Which is your jab, cross, hook,
Mm.
just for anybody listening. But he needs to be able to work that clinch.
Yeah.
Work the clinch, work the takedown.
He has to get his
grapple.
hands on him some way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And it's going to be
Which
interesting
is-
to see where.
It's
Oh, go
funny
ahead.
because Gus is probably the one guy that used to tell Jones, "You're the one that's gonna have to close the range."
Yeah, right. Because the thing here for me the other thing too is like what headspace is John in? Because before this week, I was gonna say he's too focused on DC.
Mhm.
Like he needs to focus on this fight. This guy gave him his best fight to date, his
Yeah.
toughest fight. So a lot of people thought
This
he lost
guy,
that fight.
yeah. A lot of people, it's probably split down the middle that say you lost to this guy.
Mhm.
The judges gave you that win.
But he's already talking about DC. So to your point earlier, is he jealous of him? I don't know. I have no clue. That's weird to me. But a guy that I beat twice. But yeah, he keeps picking on him for some reason. So you know, and then this whole week, this whole debacle with him and the steroid, the turn the ball thing. Another thing I actually saw, if I had my phone next to me, there was somebody from another fight from BJPenn.com that actually made a good point that Dana White was saying to Gus earlier, saying that he's been clean in the last 6 months when they tested him.
Yeah, I think up to 8 times it was.
Yeah, guess what? He got tagged.
Jakovitsky, yeah, I saw that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times it turned up negative, but 1, 2, 3, 4 times it turned up with that low dose of what's the
Picogram?
picogram? Is
Yeah.
that what it is? Something ridiculous like that. So 4 times he appeared with that.
I
But
know
he
they
told
call it
Gus-
pulsing effect. But yeah, it's weird to me that Dana would.
That's
do
a
that.
well, he's a blatant liar.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I mean, and we can say that because we don't work for him. So. And USADA's made some good points. They said it's not that Nevada didn't want to get this fight set, it's just that they're taking a lot of precaution. Regardless of who the fighter
I
is,
know,
they wanted to take a lot of precaution about issuing a license to fight on such short notice of these results.
Well, I know that, and I think that Ford, the chairman for the Nevada State Athletic Commission, are on vacation. They're not even in the state,
Yeah.
so they can't get them together to show them the science. We're not smart enough to understand science. So.
No, I don't think anybody is. Everybody says the same thing. Like, I don't understand this picogram and all that crap.
I think it's the pulsing effect that people don't understand.
Well, you know, and the only person I've heard mention it is Frank Mir. Well, I mean,
because he got a similar ban.
he's used the term pulsing. Yeah, because he got that 2-year ban. But he's used the term pulsing. Everybody else is just like, oh, it showed up a little bit because it stays in your system. Nobody else.
Well, I think
uses
you
that
saw
term,
it said it was a pulsing effect that it could
Mhm.
happen.
Oh,
Yeah.
was that them that
Yeah.
said that too? I didn't see that. But I wonder what headspace he's in now. Like, did that refocus him on this Gus fight? Because now he feels like he has to justify a win.
Well, then,
Is it too late to get back in that
when
headspace?
does his luck run out?
I don't know. It has to eventually.
I mean, I don't mean to be a huge John Jones hater, but the amount of shit that guy's gotten away with, at some point your luck's gonna run out.
We were the same way though. We loved this kid when he came up. Like, we were watching him, you know, in his first fights in the UFC. He looked so humble when he took the loss to Matt Hamill, which obviously he wrecked Matt
Yeah.
Hamill, but he was using illegal 12-6 elbows to knock him out, and then he got the loss on that one because it went to Matt for the illegal blows, essentially. He looked so humble, and then just ever since he started going down, like I think he wrapped his Bentley around a light post for a DUI, which was the first thing. And you're like, you know what, a young guy, he's partying too much, but you know, it is what it is. And he gets busted for, I think the coke was the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the hit and run where he
Then
went
that
back for his
hit and
coke.
he didn't want to leave it and
Yeah.
spend too much money on it. He can afford a Bentley, but he can't afford just to leave the coke there and then go get
Yeah.
it. No, I'm sure that was to try and hide the evidence, but yeah, I mean, this guy's gone downhill. It feels like everybody's giving him a chance. He's gotten busted now he's getting busted for steroids. He's doing all the things that you don't want him to do. DUI from drinking. He parties too much. He's done, like hardcore drugs, and now then he got busted for doing steroids, which I might be wrong on this, but did one of his brothers get busted for that in the NFL?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't want to. Actually, I won't start that because I want to say one of them did. One of the brothers got
If it was,
busted, or
I don't
did.
think it was Chandler who was the big one
Mhm.
in the NFL. I feel like I would have remembered that.
Yeah. I want to say that. Don't take my word on that. I'll
Yeah,
have
I'm
to
not
look
100%
back.
sure
Yeah,
either.
so I'll take that back. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, this guy's lost all his chance. I feel like he's lost all his fans, or most of his fans for the most
Well,
part.
but he still has a lot of hardcore fans that still back him up.
Because there's a lot of people, which, good for them, they just want to see a fight for a fight. And John
Well,
Jones
you know,
is
people
one of the
love
best.
people like greatness,
Mhm.
and that's what John is. John's the best talent. No, there's no doubt. You can't say he's not the best talent that the sport's ever seen.
Mhm.
And I think people are attracted to that automatically. Put all the other stuff to the side.
Right.
Because, you know, you also look at it, people think, well, we're watching this guy, you know, beat other people up. We're not voting for him for political office. Or who cares what he's doing outside of the cage?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to that point, we're in a new age where everybody cares about everything, you know, that you do inside and outside the cage. So, you know, with social media and all that. But I almost, but again, going back to the point, bring this full circle is, I wonder what headspace he's going to be in.
Mhm.
Did this actually readjust his mental state to focus more on Gus? Because I felt like he was unfocused for this fight because he was having these back and forths with Daniel Cormier, and you're like, dude, you're not even fighting him. Like, and this is making the
Yeah.
MMA news headlines, is that you're arguing.
Tell him
with
that
these-
Daniel Cormier, you're going to slap his ass on the way. Or slap his ass on the way. Slap his ass on the ass.
We've been here for a little bit,
Yeah.
so that's understandable. Yeah, so, all right, but let's go to picks, man. I think that we've talked about it. We've talked about what they need to do to win. This is going to be exciting. This is going to be awesome. Who do you see?
I think Gus keeps it standing, and John runs out of luck. I think it's about that time.
I'm going to go with that too.
I don't know if he knocks him out. I'm not saying he's going to finish him, but I think Gus finally does it. And this is also Gus's last shot, too. I know we haven't talked about that. Gus has had 2 title fights. He's pushed in both 5 rounds, close fights. The one with John, a lot of people thought he won. He definitely lost to DC. But this is his last shot. This is his career. Right here, tomorrow night.
I agree, unless
And I
John
know-
Jones leaves the division after this fight for some reason, he goes and
But it
chases
won't mean
heavyweight.
as
But
much. It
yeah,
won't mean
no,
anything
well,
to him.
because he's gonna be the same. He would be in the same boat DC is.
He'd be in a worse boat. 'Cause-
Yeah, that's true. Because he
Yep.
was never a champ until both of the
yeah.
champs left.
Because
So-
he'll have no Rumble and no a Gus type fighter to defend his belt against.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with Gus on this one, man. I think he has a lot to fight for. I think he's gonna learn from his mistakes in the first one, which if you
I think he wants it
all
more.
that. Yeah, I think he wants it more. Clearly, he does.
Mhm.
So.
Because this has been a hard guy to get in the cage, but when they told him John, they made that fight fast.
Yeah. And the other thing too is he didn't hesitate to allow this fight to move from Nevada.
You know, that's one of his comments that he told John. He said, "You can be on rocket field, I'm still beating you."
What
So
a
that,
great
you
comment.
want to talk about somebody where their head's at? His head's at. I don't care where this guy is. I'm sure he's expected something to be in his body, but he's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna go with Gus on that one too. I like Gus. Obviously, I think he's a more exciting. No, I shouldn't say more exciting fighter, but I prefer the stand up. You know, I like watching the good, crisp boxing and stuff like that. So it favors me. So what do you think Vegas odds have it?
John favorite. I would say probably at least a 200 plus.
Negative 265 for Jones to Alexander Gustafson's 245 plus 245. So it's almost identical to the co-main event in the odds spread there.
Yeah,
so.
they're going to get a little bit more bigger odds because that's the fights they want you to bet on.
Yeah, yeah. So
And I shouldn't say they're safer picks, but two dominant champions. So
yeah. So we got a lot of stuff here. This is gonna look good. Tomorrow night's gonna be a ton of fun. Got a lot of sports to watch tomorrow. So again, if you're listening beforehand, follow us on Twitter. I'll be tweeting during the fights, talk about the rounds, just quick thoughts, who we think are winning rounds. And otherwise, I really hope that you enjoyed our show. We're going to probably get back together for a much shorter show on Sunday just to recap the fights. We'll probably focus a little bit more on the main card and not so much on the prelims and stuff. And we're going to hone in on that. But otherwise, thank you for listening. Please give us some feedback on Facebook. Follow our page at The Casuals MMA. And thank you again for joining us.
it was a fun first time.
Yeah, it was
We went
fun.
a lot longer than I thought we would.
We went a lot longer than I thought it would too, but we'll definitely have to shorten that up going forward. So thank you for hanging in there with us if you did throughout the whole show. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
had to pee for a while.
Oh my god.
Oh, my back hurts. I'm dying.